out.
Yeah.
That's a long time
It
ago.
was.
My goodness.
Yeah. No, he's doing fine. Just living and working in Manhattan.
Oh, nice.
He loves it.
That's so good.
He loves it.
I'll be down there Friday. You need me to deliver anything to him?
It's all right.
I'll give you a ride home.
What?
I'll give you a ride home.
Oh, okay, then I have to cross the street. It's even worse.
All right, 7 o'clock. We're ready to get going. All right. Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, January 16th. This is the advisory committee meeting. We have a full agenda this evening. And first, kick things off with Mr. James Cabral, the Veterans Agent. From there, we'll move to the Board of Health, then Building Inspector, Town Administrator. From there, Neshoba Regional School District, close things out with the library. So, Mr. Cabral, how are you, sir? Please come on up.
All right.
How are you this evening?
Good.
All right, so if you wouldn't mind just providing just a brief summary overview of what's going on within your department, your area, for the benefit, we have Ann Hurd, who's a new member, and also just for the benefit of the folks that might be dialing in this evening, if you could just share what your mission is and what goes on with you over the course of the year.
The mission, my mission and the town of Bolton's mission is to take care of needy veterans. So it's called the Chapter 115 program, run by the state, administered by the state, and the town gets reimbursed by the state. Whatever the town spends, you get reimbursed 75%. Right now we have 3 veterans. Well, we have a widow and 2 veterans on the rolls. That could change whenever.
Yeah, and you've shared that with us in the past, that the biggest driver of your budget is a function of the number of veterans.
Right.
And it's
their costs.
been steadily going up. I mean, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we were with 1 person,
Right.
right? And
Yes.
now we're at 3.
Now we're at 3.
Okay.
But it's been steady at 3 since for the last couple of years. So that's why my budget is basically almost the same. But then I took $100 out of advertising. But everything else has stayed the same.
Yep.
Hopefully, I know I did have a veteran this month. He spent over $800 that we had to reimburse him for. But next month he could be $400. So I don't know.
Yep. And so the advertising is for...
The advertising, we usually use the advertising for when we have the Veterans Day breakfast. That's what that's used for.
All right.
Along with the meeting, the 500 for meetings, that's also the Veterans Day breakfast.
Okay.
And Linda takes care of that. She pays the bill out of those accounts.
And clearly the biggest percentage is the actual veterans benefits.
Yes, correct.
So can you just share a little bit more about what that involves,
Okay,
what that
well,
money
we'll say
goes
a needy
towards?
veteran, we reimburse him for his, any of his insurance costs, co-pays. We reimburse him for his Medicare payments, his health insurance payments, medical prescription payments, co-pays. Mostly it's all co-pays, other than, like it says, his regular health insurance, which, health insurance could be expensive this month and less next month. The way that runs. But that's about what we do, is just reimburse them for out of their pocket expenses.
And so when you were sharing it previously, this is a state-run program and 75% of those costs. So it's that line item of veterans benefits that is is comprised of that 75%
Right.
reimbursement.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Is this not a wholly asinine system the way this is set up, right? I mean, it starts at the federal level. If they were a veteran, give them health care. End of story.
That's too
But
easy.
let's go through
Too
this.
easy.
Well, these are veterans' spouses too, right?
Spouses too, it's
I
all
don't
with us.
care, but let's go through this charade of
I
having them
agree.
pay and are reimbursed, and then the town gets reimbursed, like,
It's
Jesus.
all taxable.
Yeah.
So
Just-
let's just understand, so the 16-8, which is the veterans benefits, is reimbursed at 90% rate?
75.
75%, okay.
Yep.
So where does, and that goes straight to the town?
Yes, general fund,
I mean, it's just a delay, right? And that's getting- we're
it's a delay.
Yeah, I mean,
We're funding it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and we're getting
You
reimbursed.
probably haven't been reimbursed since last year.
Yeah,
It's
so
about a year.
what I was just trying to figure out, I mean, Mr. Cabral's total budget, as you all can see, is 22.5,
But the net would be somewhat less than that.
because it's only the 16.8
Yeah.
that is
75%.
75% reimbursed.
Okay, I get it.
Okay?
Is this needs-based?
Yes.
And if it's needs-based, you said Medicare, not Medicaid, so it's...
Medicare, you know, you pay $134 a month for Medicare,
Okay.
we reimburse for that.
We reimburse for the premium.
Oh, the premiums
Premium.
on that end of
Yes.
the paying end.
Yeah.
That's what, hence why I said just
Okay.
right up front, just,
And if you have a Medigap plan to go with that, we reimburse them for that.
Okay.
But they also have to qualify, which, you know, usually,
they went and served our country.
well, that's true, but we have a
It's income
This
based?
one guy we
income
got.
based, yes. I mean, the average, you gotta stay under, we'll say $2,000 for a couple,
Yeah, that's
which,
not gonna be solved this evening.
No, I
Yes.
need to
Yeah, I
understand
know.
how it
Yeah,
works,
so-
that's all.
but it's need-based and it's all set by income.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions, guys? Entertain a motion to approve veteran services as is.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Have a nice evening.
Murray, stay out of the weather.
Yeah.
How you doing, sir? Glad to see you again.
All right. Mr. Slade, how are you this evening?
Oh, I'm just great.
Excellent. Good to hear. At
As
your
usual,
leisure.
As usual, I don't take anybody's advice.
Uh,
No, no, Bert, dairy farmer said, Chris, whatever you do, don't get old. I didn't listen.
You know, I heard that. I heard that not only from my father as well as my grandfather. And
It's been around for a long time.
yeah.
Hi, Chris.
So it's a process. Anyhow, yes.
Brad, if you have an extra one of those budgets, you can give that to us. if you have an extra.
Oh, yeah. This is my understanding, sir. Is the that's yeah, Board of Health. Yep. This is the updated Board of Health.
Have you passed that?
I did pass that out to everyone. Yep.
Ah, there it is.
So that is 510. We'll start off at 439.
I can't find it yet, because I put so much paper, I don't know what you've done, the numbers are also small.
Okay. So 439, sir, this is landfill well monitoring.
Yeah.
Oh, our favorite topic.
Yes. And so it's coming in level funded as it was last year, thank you very much, $6,100. Now, I remember you saying last year, and it has stuck with me, that we're in this. The state, as much as we do, and as good as our historical records may be, the bottom line is this is a moneymaker. And your perspective is this does not go away. A few weeks back, we had the DPW department in, and I know this was not the same. They were.
This is the landfill versus, they were talking about the pizza.
They were
Yeah.
doing
The
well monitoring.
DPW, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
This is the landfill, right?
yes,
Yes.
landfill well monitoring. So I don't know, he shared some news that seemed rather encouraging. No disrespect to him nor you, there's a conflict of opinions. But are you still of the mindset that we're gonna be paying this until we're all 200 years old?
I don't think we're gonna make it to 200 years, but at the moment, we're gonna be paying it for a while longer. It's one of these things, as long as we're showing some due diligence, if anything happens, we've showed we're doing some due diligence. If we drop it completely, and even if somebody gets sick from something completely irrelevant, nothing to do with us, we're gonna be in the deep pocket that the lawyer knows.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of defensive nonsense. We've tried to cut a lot of it down so that we're doing it every other year on a lot of them rather than every year. But yeah, we're probably sort of stuck with it, to be honest with you.
Is this under DEP?
Yes. And this is the problem. DEP does the saying and we do the paying. Never a good situation to be in.
All right.
And we'll endeavor to, when it was good, one of our wells collapsed. And I believe our Joel Fish there was able to convince DEP it was not necessary to completely flush it out and reestablish it, as it always come up with negative. So at least we didn't have that expense.
All right. Well, again, this is something that, you know, we can sit here all night long. And
It's a
it's
mandate.
that's right, it's gonna happen. The only positive news is, you know, from my perspective, is what, you know, the new DPW director shared, that he seems there may be some light in a tunnel somewhere. So it'll be all pleasantly surprised if that actually does come to fruition, so. On 439, if no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve as
Now,
is.
is 439 the one we're doing every other year? Or is it?
No.
Yeah, well,
The one at the.
some of them we have to do every year, and some of the more outlying ones, we're trying to do every other year.
Okay,
So there's a whole field of test wells, right?
all right. I was looking for a year with a zero. That's fine.
No, I'm afraid not.
So moved.
All right.
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
We want to start with next.
So now we move to 510. And so, you guys all, this is an updated version. Nanashka provided this to us, and there was, Nanashka, may you please refresh my memory on the reason for the updated piece on 510?
The wages line changed.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Okay.
so,
One second.
all right, wages are now 30,044, which is, why am I looking at animal inspector?
Because that's under Board of Health
That's all right.
also.
Board of Health.
That always confuses that. Did I not say that when she was in last week?
No, that's animal control.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah, we have two people. We have animal control that answers to the police chief, animal inspector that answers to us.
Yeah, all right.
It's great bureaucracy.
Okay. So, moving past wages, I mean, the only difference, the only change I'm seeing is the Neshoba Associated Board of Health. I'm assuming they just decided to whack us for more money. Is that right?
Well, no. Problem is, for years, Neshoba had a separate division, basically working for Medicare and Medicaid, supplying home nursing services and hospice services. And I think you're all aware that our federal approach to medical care at the moment is in one hell of a topsy-turvy mess. And the outcome, but bottom line is, they're not willing to pay for the services as much as they used to. So that source of revenue that we've been able to subsidize the services we give the towns has dried up by step by step by step. So we have to ask you for more money. Not that we want to go to have our annual meeting at Bimini or something else. Well, all the members of the board directors, which I'm one of the executive committee, you know, we should get a stipend of 20 grand or something. But seriously, we've tried to keep everything very carefully governed up there. I can get you there. Unfortunately, we're meeting to actually vote this, but this is based on the recommendations of the executive director and the treasurer at a 5% level. And I'm quite sure the executive committee is going to vote it Thursday night. We were supposed to have met earlier this month, so I would have a absolute hard figure. But I think it's 99% hard.
And is this Neshoba, I mean, I'm assuming it's some type of collaborative, Bolton along with several other towns?
15.
Okay. And is this the same Neshoba that is for the town's health insurance?
No.
Or, no? And is there any benefit or ability, you know, the town of Bolton, from what I've been able to see so far, when the town moved to the regional dispatch center, you know, is there the ability to take a Neshoba consortium and merge it with some other consortium to, is there that possibility?
I don't think so. We have 15 towns represented around here, and we're sort of banging into very much larger communities such as the city of Fitchburg, Leominster, Acton, much larger than us. And I don't think they particularly are going to be in a consortium with us. We have taken primarily all the little towns in northern Worcester County and a few in Middlesex and serve them in a professional manner. Now, you do have, Stowe just joined us. For years, they've had a very nice gentleman down there who tried to do everything. He was trying to do the food inspection, the sewage systems, the water, blah, 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 blah. He retired. And so I said, you know, if we join with Neshoba, the cost will be about the same. We have one person in Bridget. She does, I think, one town on the sanitary end of it. But other than that, she is food preparation. And when we had a big blow up in Globe a few years ago about, oh, how these school cafeterias were terrible and fridges full of rotten food and the rest, I made one phone call Monday morning. Do we have anything to worry about? No. All inspections have been made, recorded. It's all recorded on deficiencies, a re-inspection with a correction.
So is
Everyone is in compliance.
So is it also fair to say that because Stowe recently joined, that had they not joined, that this increase in the assessment would have been even higher?
No. No, I don't think so. We pretty much try to work very hard that Stowe will be served by the revenue that they bring in. And each town, more or less, by population, we usually balance it every 10 years at the national census on population. We spent quite a bit of time there, 8 years ago, I guess, going over whether population was really an accurate way to do it. And we pushed around a whole bunch of different numbers and came up with population was pretty darn close. There might be a few points off here and there, but the fact is services ran pretty much in line with the population of each community. So each community hopefully is paid its fair share for the services they require. Our sanitarian was very good, Mr. Brookings. He's been with us almost 20 years. Very detailed, very careful, and he serves Berlin, Bolton, and Lancaster. And he's a pretty busy boy trying to keep up with 3 towns and some of Stowe. But
Okay.
I don't know how we get better services for the same amount of money.
All right. Any other questions? All right, so I have a total Board of Health of 46,421. Is that what you guys have?
Yep.
All right. Entertain a motion to approve as is.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, I have 49,152.
It was an updated one.
Oh, okay. All right. And it's better.
All right. So, I'm sorry, Ann and Connie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. And finally, Mr. Slade, 522. 522, what the hell are you? Nursing, yep. All right, nursing, purchase of services, level funded, 50, well, actually, a little bit less, 50, I'm sorry, holy cow, it's already a couple $100 more, 5,749. Tell me about purchase of services within the nursing, if you wouldn't mind.
We have, I think, 3 professional nurses that work for the agency. The one that takes care of Bolton is Tamara Bedard. She's very good. She spends probably 2/3 of her time nursing, the other third trying to make sure that the people of Bolton who are entitled to benefits from the federal government, state government, and all the different programs, guiding them through the paperwork and the mess. And so storing up Montechusett health care occasionally, which is paid by Medicare and Medicaid, that they're down here doing their job and not sort of ignoring people. And I think she does a very good job. I talk to her usually, well, we have some cases where people really need assistance. I might talk to her 2 or 3 times a week. But normally I will talk to her every month, 2 months. She is also a regular down at the senior housing.
Okay.
Answering all the questions there, helping our seniors down there.
So she serves seniors, or is
She'll
it
serve everybody.
serve
But
everybody?
usually it's seniors.
Okay.
When I grew up here, the lady that did it was named Jackie Hudson. And I remember local farmers, you know, boy, my husband's got a cold, he just can't shake, he's coughing and hacking. They'd call her because they didn't have health insurance, and to go to the doctor cost money. And Jackie would swing by and evaluate the situation, say, yeah, give it a couple of days, you're gonna come out of this, or you better go see the doctor. And as people, more and more of our residents have full health insurance, naturally there's less of that.
Yeah.
We still have a few people that don't have health insurance, and seniors that get sort of lost along the way and struggling, and she's there
Yeah.
to help them.
So she works closely with the senior center,
Yes.
but at the same time, it's not strictly seniors.
No, it is not.
It's access really anyone within town.
Yep.
And she's assisting folks.
Does flu clinics for reduced cost for flu shots, which everybody's invited
Provides
to.
general health,
Yep.
education, things of that
Yep.
nature.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there overlap with the Council of Aging? I mean,
I'm
Seems
looking
that
at that right now
people-
too, but I don't see anybody listed as a nurse.
I don't
Is
think-
outreach the same as nurse?
Well, I think,
No.
No.
yeah, so I think what we can do, guys, is ask Mr. Slade questions pertaining to the information that he's aware of. Then tomorrow night, we have Council on Aging,
Yes.
Right.
Their outreach people are doing,
Human Services.
working very
and-
close with her, very closely with her, trying to get, as I say, all the benefits. We all pay taxes to these programs.
Mhm.
Some of them like them and don't like them. But if they're there, let's make sure our citizens get their fair share, so to speak.
Yeah.
Even though we might say there's a better way to do it. I want to make sure.
Do citizens know they have this
Well,
benefit?
we try to tell them, but as I say, in a town like Bolton, at the moment, we have a small percentage of our people that don't have full health insurance and coverage either through their employment or whatever. They're just happy that it doesn't cost them anything to bebop over to their regular primary care physician and keep their services there. But if for some reason they can't,
Yeah.
we do have that service.
How do they find this person? Is this,
Yeah.
Well,
where does she find them?
Well, she and I sort of poke around looking for people that we think might be in a problem. We sometimes get them a reference from the police department or the ambulance. Somebody is checking on seniors and say, you know, I think they're in trouble.
Are you able to cross-reference data received from Pam Powell by way of census, or
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, we can look at
Okay.
that. Now, where we do get into a real problem is being a elected official, I'm considered the boneheaded clog of the system. So she has to be very careful in discussing cases about claims and discussing privacy information, all the HIPAA laws.
yeah,
And it makes it sort of difficult. I think I've got quite a bit of confidence, her confidence, that I'm not gonna go off and shoot off my mouth.
yeah.
But she's got to be guarded all the way as to,
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to, make sure that, I mean, there's a process in place that the town is following, that she's getting access to information,
Yes.
right? And
yes.
obviously without violating rules and laws and
Yeah.
all that, but is there a efficient way to serve you to get the services that you're overseeing to the people who may potentially need
Well-
them is what, but if you seem as, I was just throwing it out there just as an idea, but if you're getting, referrals from the police, obviously, an ambulance, obviously a great
I
source.
haven't had a case that I know of. She may have worked on them. I mean, I only get involved when she's struggling with something. If it's a routine thing, she just handles it. If she's really struggling with something, she'll call me and say, yeah, we got a real mess here. But I know she worked very closely with Vin O'Farnell. And Vin was very complimentary of her, because I talked to Vin when I became part of the Board of Health. I said, Vin, are we functioning well? And he said, yes, Tamara's fantastic. I communicate with her if I see a problem coming, and she communicates with me.
Okay,
I said, fine.
any other questions, guys?
Are the activities of this person, are they outlined in the annual report? Or
Yes.
Just
It will be under Neshoba.
And it
Neshoba's
has some-
annual report.
notion of the number of cases or
Yeah.
something? Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look, our annual report is very short, our local Board of Health. But you'll find a very lengthy report by the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. With, full budget disclosures and personnel activities and the rest.
All right. That's all. Yeah, it's cool,
Yeah.
I think.
Yep. By all means, go over it, and if you're
Okay,
convenient.
community health nursing?
Yeah.
That's it there. Okay, good deal.
Yep, and if you have some problem, questions in the future, just give us an email, either through the board or personally. That'd be good.
Terry, you good? All right. Any other questions? All right. Entertain a motion to approve 522 as is, 5749.
So,
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Mr. Slade, thank you very much for what you do for the town. Have a nice
Thank
evening.
you, and thank you for what you do. Now, reduce my taxes.
I didn't know that was gonna come.
They'll have to cut your budget to do that.
Well, not mine, the other guy. What would you expect from that local cranky yank?
so true.
Have a good evening,
Take
everyone.
care.
Take care. Mr. Savino?
Yes.
Are you, sir? Come on down.
How you doing?
Good.
Nice
How are
to
you?
see everyone again. Good
Nice to see
evening,
you.
everyone. How you doing? Good to see you again. Okay. All righty, we have the big budget here.
Yeah. All right, so tell me, looks like coming in just slightly over, but that's just a function of the wages from a COLA.
Yeah. We took training out in the past couple of years. That's worked well because I was also working for the town of Lunenburg at the time.
Yes.
And I was doing my training, they would compensate me for the training, so that worked well. That's why we had cut that out.
Yes.
On the supply end of it, we talked last year.
No one from Lunenburg's watching this, right?
Don't say anything.
Well, I'm not there anymore, so
Let's go. All right, good.
they can watch all they want. On the training, we have $250 in there. I will be going in the fall to UMass Amherst to get the training that I was generally getting through the town of Lunenburg. So I no longer can get that as part of their program as it is here with the training here.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of keep that there, and that's a 3-day event, and it's roughly anywhere from $150 to $300, depending on what, if you do the lunches during the, the 3 days and all that. So that is pretty stable. As far as the supplies go, that's worked out pretty well. What we did end up doing, we had talked about it last year, and I had mentioned that the state had talked about the new code coming in, and they didn't trigger it in July. And I told you it might happen January 1. It did happen January 1. What we did was we did use some of the money out of supplies, and I was able to buy all my new code books, except 2 of them. At last year, we had mentioned that you guys would put a little holder there. If you need something, let us know. It's actually worked out pretty good, because the 2 books that I did not purchase, one is the fire code, and Dave Farrell, he has that book, because they get them from the fire services. The state no longer gives us the code books. So he has that book. He does most of the reference of that book. A lot of that is under the building code, obviously, but the fire department historically throughout the Commonwealth has taken care of a lot of those responsibilities, and they have their own code to follow also. So he has that book, which I can reference, and also go online. And the other one was the swimming pool and spa code, which is a very small one, and we just figured that I
We
could,
don't have a swimming pool.
well, I can go, I could just go online with that one, because those changes probably haven't been that drastic. You know, the whole codes don't change. There are portions of them that do, and in the larger books, you gotta get them.
Well,
And the
it's like
smaller
going to
little,
college.
the smaller little,
We don't want you to have edition 7. I just wrote edition 8. I need you to buy edition 8.
Yeah, edition 8 and all the amendments that come with it.
Yeah.
And Massachusetts has amendments for everything. So really, I mean, I think the budget is pretty much cut and dry, so to speak, and we're pretty much at the bare bones, and it's worked, and it's actually worked, and we've been pretty busy as last year. It seems to be very steady here. We have a couple of more large projects that are getting through the approval stage, I heard, a couple of subdivisions and things. So we anticipate having another busy year. Bolton's never really turned down, but, you know, it stays pretty steady. But it all works. The vehicle maintenance has worked since the day I came here. That seems to be working, so we can leave that alone. I don't need any more there, and hopefully buy some tires before tomorrow morning.
Don't go anywhere.
I know. I got a couple of slicks on there right now. I go through a set every year. Every year.
The way that the DPW director is keeping our streets clean from this new process, I don't think you have to worry.
It's those back common driveways that kill it.
Questions? Anyone?
No, just wait for it.
Entertain a motion to approve as is.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, sir. Have a nice
Okay,
evening.
thanks a lot, yeah. Happy New Year, everyone.
You as well?
Next one?
Our Sergeant Hulka, our big toe, Mr. Town Administrator.
Ah. The guy with all the numbers after his name.
Well, hello, Mr. Lowe. How are you, sir?
How are you, Lance? Nice to see you.
On the bottom.
Oh, thank you. Driving.
She's only thinking of your well-being by driving.
But it's hard enough.
I've gained 10 pounds since Thanksgiving.
I know what you mean. I think I have two.
All right, so we can start off at 122. The selectmen.
I can give you
Little space.
you can even look here.
Hello, Jim.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing.
Yeah.
So 122, actually we are running, well, I don't know, most of the budgets, I have to say. The purchases services line.
We'll need an adjustment. We've submitted an adjustment to it. There was one charge, and it was for the upgrade to virtual town hall. Should have been charged against purchase of services, and it wasn't. So that'll be a $3,000 charge that you don't see there now. So the actual spend right now will have set $27.59 at the end of December, and not $57.59. So we are using that for what it's intended to use for. So just to make sure you've got that. Aside from that, things are running pretty well. And even with that, things are running well. And there's really nothing that's out of line here that I can see. I don't know how you'd like to do this. Do you want to do it line item by line item?
Yeah, and select with this, I know the selectmen are heavily involved in all kinds of salary negotiations. They're not trying to hop on the train and look for some
No,
additional comp.
we're holding firm on the selectmen this
All
year.
right, good.
They haven't unionized.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are the sports cards?
All the negotiations, I'm assuming they're picking up all kinds of, juicy tidbits inside there, standing, looking for future negotiations or something. Wheat, I know you shared with us that went up last year.
Yes.
It was a rather healthy increase, so they're holding steady this year.
The wheat was very appreciative, and they are holding steady.
So
They're servicing more clients than ever, too.
Yeah, so that's not a hard and fast number, it's a donation, or?
It's an assessment is what I would call it.
All right.
Could you just remind us of how that assessment works? Like, are the $7,000 that we're giving earmarked for Bolton folks, or does it just go into the wheat?
It goes into the wheat fund of the 5 towns, and that allows any Bolton resident to avail themselves of any of the services.
Okay. And is the assessment based on the population of the member towns? Do you know?
It is, I think proportionally it is. I wouldn't say, right to the percentage, but they do go proportionally. A town like Clinton pays up much more than a town like Bolton does. I don't believe we pay quite as much as, say, as a town like Lancaster does, but I'm sure we pay more than Berlin.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on 122?
I have a question about the wheat. Do you get some update at some point, quarterly or otherwise, of what your expenses are on the wheat program, or is it just everything goes into the pot and it's allocated as needed?
Everything goes into the pot and it's allocated as needed. There's one budget for wheat to provide services to the 5 towns, and they come up with an assessment of the towns.
Okay.
So is that a breakdown in the annual report? Is there a wheat page that says Bolton contributed X to wheat, and here's what Bolton got out of wheat? Is that?
No, we don't have anything like that. I mean, we can get an annual report from wheat that shows the services that were provided overall. I don't know that they can provide it down to the town level for each town.
So I think one, at the very least, if we could maybe look to add that into the annual report, but ideally, if they're collected for 5 towns, I would think that it would be in their best interest to serve their 5 clients, to break it down proportionally. So if you could take that back to wheat and ask them to adjust their accounting, that'd be...
For instance, when someone goes to the cafe, and I know a little bit about it because I was on the wheat board before I came here, and I was the board president for 1 year, but that's also like 10-year-old information, so I'm not sure exactly how they do it now, but they will, for, say, the cafe, when someone goes in and have a meal, they ask you to sign in and say what town you're from. But there's no one monitoring to make sure they do that. If you go in to avail yourself of certain services, they normally would capture, what town you're from, but how they could systemically report that, I'm not sure.
All right.
But I'll certainly speak to the director.
Yeah, hopefully they can. And then I'm thinking today's day and age with accounting, they should be able to. All right. Other questions on 122? All right. Entertain a motion to approve as is.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? 123. All right. Coming in level funded. Anything of note that you'd like to share with the committee?
Let me see, in the purchase of services here, that $3,000 will be removed and is being transferred over to the purchase of services for 122. We just hit the wrong purchase of services when we did it, so that's why the purchase of services in 122 was understated by 3,000 and this is overstated by 3,000. Aside from that, things are running.
And that would be in supplies, Don? Is that, I don't have a purchase.
He's looking at the expenditure ledger.
So the run rate,
Yeah.
Very,
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I beg your pardon, yes.
No, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
he's
basically,
looking at-
it's not on theirs because it was a mistake.
I caught that the first go
Yes.
round.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
so
have
that wouldn't be
on
caught
it.
at this level
I can
here,
see,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yes, that's a ledger level, but you're right.
Yeah.
Aside from that, no, we're tracking pretty well, actually. There was nothing that really jumped out at me in this particular budget.
Could you just explain when the hearing officer expense gets paid? Is that like toward the end of the fiscal year?
It's the last warrant of the fiscal year.
Okay. And what is that for?
That's for if anyone appeals a ruling by if the fire department finds someone or the building inspector finds someone, the fines are not enforceable if they don't have someone to appeal it to. So a town must have a hearing officer in order to have that. So we've had that for, I guess, about 4 years now, I think. I was actually approached about another town. They had a fine that was being appealed. I guess it was a fairly large fine, and they didn't have a hearing officer, and they actually asked if I could go with it.
Clean yourself up.
And I couldn't do it. I can't do it because it has to be within the municipality.
All right. Other questions? Entertain a motion to approve 123.
So moved.
second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? 151.
Legal services. That's always the one that we spend quite a lot of time on. So, last year, FY17 was certainly an outlier. Actually pulled the budget versus actual for the last 8 years, the last fiscal 8 years that I've been responsible for. Yeah, we've been all over the place. In 2010, with a budget of 40,000, we came in at 26.5. 2011, a budget of 40,300, we came in at 38. Then, starting in 12, right when we reduced the budget, it started going up. In 12, the budget was 35.3. We came in at 50, a little over 50,000. 2013, still at 35. We came in at 59,000. 14, still at 35. We came in at 58,000. So for 15, we upped it to 45,000.
Yeah, and 60,
And we
and
came
then
at 60,
43.
and then 40 and 43, right? So I don't think we're going to be seeing the days of certainly in the 30s again. Looking at this, I'd be tempted to suggest that for FY19, we go to 50. I would say 45 at a minimum. What I don't recall is why in 15 with a budget of 45 and an expense of 60, we actually lowered it to 40,000. I honestly don't remember.
Probably caught you on a good night.
Could be, could be.
I don't know.
But I think 50 is probably a better number these days, but if we would like to try 45 instead,
I think 50 is a good idea, actually. I mean, don't you come at the end of the year to have us approve
Yes.
yes,
the spending?
if we do need transfers, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, last year, the 17 obviously a big number, right? We're talking, negotiations, we're talking trying to attempt to get 2 selectmen up to speed on what reality is and how.
And we had some litigation. We go years without litigation. We had some litigation last year.
Yes.
If you look at, if you look at strictly litigation, we had 11.5% of the budget was relative to litigation.
Which was also a function of being served by essentially a one-man band, and we moved to a firm.
Actually, you're right to a point. The 11.5% doesn't include what I think you're referring to. There was a separate case that dragged on for years that had been managed by a very small firm, 1+, call it 2 people really. That actually is captured from the percentages that I broke down here is under our labor line, under our labor negotiations, because it was an employee issue or former employee issue. So if you look at the percentages for FY17, labor negotiations, which includes that case, was 44% of the budget. General town council work, which could be anything to do with zoning, can be...
Which we had a little bit of an issue.
We did. That would be 44.4%, and then everything else, and I can use names because it's all public information. Some of the details, the negotiating strategy is not, but the names are the DiPietro wetlands case, which is still going on, 7.4%. Went to that. Cultivate Counseling, better known as 401 Main Street, was 4.1%, and 0.1% went to the Board of Health, just to round out to an even 100,000. But so that's where, and as I said, FY17 was very much an outlier. We've never seen, since my tenure here, we've never seen a year like that. There were a couple of years before I got here where I think the legal budget was up around 70,000, 80,000, something like that, and there were some big years, but we brought it down from there. Some of this is a product of whatever's going on. This isn't.
But even right now, I mean, if I'm looking at this correctly, December expense ledger, you're already at 93% of the spend. I mean, you got $2,700 left.
Sounds right. Oh, okay. Yes, absolutely. And again, for FY18, much of that, I would say, much of that would be the DiPietro case, because we've been in Superior Court and paying the type of fees for litigation that you pay for that.
So is that now fully behind us?
No.
No.
It's not.
All right. So it's January, December. You got $2,700 left.
Right.
What's the remaining 5 months look like?
The remaining 5 months, I would say we're looking at, town meeting. Always, when we're getting ready for town meeting, to work on the warrant, participating at town meeting.
Meaning there's going to be billable hours that you're going to be needing to talk to town council on.
Yes. We'll have the ongoing, the one constant really is the zoning and the planning board. Excuse me, planning board needs ongoing support. We've gotten quite a bit of support already from council this year in prep for town meeting, because we do have 4, 5, 6, I forget exactly where the number is right now, the zoning articles.
Yeah.
And there's some big ones.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of prep there. The recreational marijuana, helping us get ready for that. There's been a fair amount for that. So we've got things like that. Aside, I can say that as far as labor negotiations go, we're in the early stages of negotiating with 2 unions, but the good news is that all the prep work is done. Labor Council does not participate in the negotiations. I'm the one who does the negotiations with the union, but I'll do a review of the contract with Labor Council in preparation for negotiations. So we've done all that. We also, the selectmen have signed a memorandum of agreement with the fire union. So all that's left with the fire union is the conversion of that memorandum of agreement language into contract language. So much of the work that Labor Council would be doing for the rest of this fiscal year, I think is behind us. So I don't expect to see a lot of labor work. I do expect to see a fair amount of work prepping for town meeting and zoning, you know, for planning board and things like that. But, and then whatever the DiPietro case holds for us. And the law committee's meeting Thursday night to
That should
discuss
be
that.
around, I mean, it's gonna be closer to 50 or more.
Oh, I think, looking at us at 37 now, I would expect us to be in the 55 to 60 range, and that's, I think, maybe being not conservative, because we just don't know what
Right.
what awaits us as far as the
Well, I
litigation
can tell
goes.
you, if you take the average from 2012 and discount this year,
Mhm,
you're at 54,000.
mhm.
And that's discounting 2018.
Right, so I think 50 is a good budget number for next year. I think it's as good as we can come up with. But I would say for this year, I think we're looking at 55 to 60 to get us through the year.
What is the role of the law committee involved here?
The role of the law committee is primarily twofold, according to the bylaw. It's to hire and fire town council, and it's to set strategy for any and all litigation.
So they play a role in deciding whether a case is better to litigate or just pay
Yes.
it off and make people go away.
That's right.
Certain cases.
Certain cases, right. Anything that's litigation.
Yeah.
If we're in court, yes.
Oh, if you're in court.
But nothing to do with labor negotiations or
Right.
general town council work, but yes. If we're being sued or if someone's suing us, I mean, if we're suing someone, then they would set the strategy for that. Because you're right, there are times when, rather than be litigious, we should just settle if it makes sense. But that's the domain of the law committee.
So just another follow-up on that. So can you just talk through what would trigger the involvement of the law committee? Because like what you just said about potentially settling something, there might be circumstances where a litigation hasn't formally been initiated, but would you get their input about trying to kind of...
Well, we would, because it would still be, could be imminent or pending litigation. So that would fall into that.
Okay. And do they have any budget authority?
No,
Do they meet regularly, or do they meet as needed?
as needed. We have done, I've seen us go 2-3 years without the law committee meet, and then we'll go through a stretch such as we've had now, or fairly recently.
Maybe just for everyone's edification, the law committee comprises of the 3 selectmen and 2 appointed members.
It's also chaired by the chair of the Board of Selectmen, so the determination of whether to have a meeting is made by the town administrator and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, not the other committee members. So we don't have visibility to everything.
That sounds like feedback.
Yes, it's starting. Yeah.
All right, so presently the budget is at 40. Dawn is saying should really seriously at least 45. Connie did some quick math. More realistically, it looks like 50.
I agree with Connie, quite honestly. I do.
So why don't we put up a request for 18 and 50?
Yes, I think that's...
Everyone okay with moving to 50? Well, let me ask. Entertain a motion to approve legal services from 40 up to 50,000.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. 150.
No. Yeah, we can circle back to IT after we walk through the rest of these.
Okay.
Thank you.
So can I come on 92?
Yes.
Yes, on 92.
everyone wants to go to 192 anyway, so.
So we're 192.
Linda's at the table, we're gonna go where Linda tells us to go. She said,
It's so much easier that way. It really is. If you just take Linda's direction.
Fine.
yeah,
Start off
I know,
Every time I don't listen to Linda, I'm proven wrong, so I just listen.
I know. I spent enough time that it's, yeah. 192,
Town hall.
Yes.
town hall. All right.
192.
192 town hall, level funded, town hall 29,620, and, yeah, that is good. You know, heating, electric, we know the deal there. I must say it's nice to actually be able to call and leave a message with someone, as opposed to what you had.
I'm really, really excited that we got that done. That was
And I know it was all about, making me happy.
good.
It was,
When you're happy,
Yeah.
my life is better.
Yeah.
no, is it, so share, anything, anything with inside this, Dawn? I've also heard, we've had some other departments in already, space, file cap,
Well, as far as town hall goes, I mean, we don't have any space left. I mean, if I ever had a position that I needed to hire for, if I needed to create a position, I honestly don't know where I'd put them, because I don't think I could create another office here. As far as file space goes, I mean, we stack file cabinets on top of file cabinets. We're gonna get rid of one of the restrooms probably
Yeah.
to make more space for filing, for storage. We utilize whatever we can, but we're pretty much maxed out.
So, I'm sure, you won't be surprised, you and I have had several conversations about this on making sure, and we've been talking to the various department heads coming in about a 5-year plan.
Mhm.
So, I would ask the same of you, knowing that, where you sit and what's going on in this joint, start building out a 5-year, so that we're better.
Absolutely.
We got it. I'm not saying he's gonna get it. We got to at
I'm
least.
laughing because I'm thinking of the shipping containers.
I know,
The old things
but
that-
Oh, I know.
I think they're fireproof.
we need to. Everyone needs to have a full
Something.
understanding of what every department, right?
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
So,
I mean, there are things that I'd love to get to. Hopefully we can. I mean, I've had it in my head. I mean, I'm a senior manager who hasn't added a headcount in 9 years. And we have as flat an organization here as we could possibly have. So we just do the best with what we've got. But, there are things that I would like to get to. Hopefully we can.
I don't have any other questions for 192 guys, so I'll open up if you guys have any questions, and even around, the 5-year plan.
I was just hoping to learn more about what the capital outlay expense was for this past fiscal year. Like, what sorts of things did that go?
It's click charges for the copier
I don't think.
and postage primarily.
Take 1,000. It's gonna go up.
And as we, we try to be as generous as possible when people need to make copies. And I don't mean just people in off the street, but I mean if communities make copies, or we're doing a mailing like the newsletter for the COA or something like that. That all goes off the copier here, so that's an expense. This copier is on its last legs. It's been there for quite a while, and one of the things we're going to be looking at is getting another copier. If there's a reasonable lease term, I'm not sure that we want to buy one, but I think probably.
Yeah, I love the concept of a lease
Yeah.
on a printer,
Yeah.
Yep.
a copy.
Yeah.
I've started the process and I have one meeting set up for next week, so we're gonna start looking at some different,
Yeah.
but we have the service repair guy in like every week now.
Yeah. You're not, you.
How do you guys feel about your postage line item?
And
Well, the,
Postage go up.
I feel like it should go up.
Doesn't first class go up very soon?
It is going up in FY19, I think, now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Well, your actual's been higher than what you requested.
Well,
It is.
Forever.
It goes up to 49 for first
Sure, a couple $100 in there.
Yeah, and you know, and we could take a couple $100 maybe off heating.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then-
you say it just like
after the meeting.
We're just not getting into the,
If you're looking
we're
at
just not
it,
getting into the heating
energy
season,
has
but
The
been in
energy
the
is-
4,300
Yeah.
range.
it has.
it has been pretty low.
I think, I would actually, I would defer to Ted's opinion. He's the
That's what
energy
we-
expert. Actually, and I owe you an answer to the email that you sent me, but yes, I'm going to approve that.
I haven't run the numbers, so I can only look at actuals and, you know, eyeball it like anybody else.
Mhm.
But if we have 4,300 actual in 2016, 4,000 in 2017,
Mhm.
I don't know how 2018 is running, but I'd say we could
18 is,
dial down the 5,600 a little bit. I mean, 4,600 would still be
mhm.
more. And Brad's got money, yes.
I was,
Yes.
yeah,
He'll back
I was
up.
saying 5.
So if we could, so if we rotated a couple hundred out of there and added it to the postage, I think that would work.
So
Oh, you're a
move-
good negotiator.
Brainstorming.
So,
Postage to 4,000,
But don't we have
and then decrease to
bulk
53.
mail rights and all that?
we
kind
do.
We do.
And,
Absolutely.
and even those are going up?
You just
I
said
mean,
200.
I actually don't know if bulk mail is going up or not. I haven't seen it. Everyone only talks about first class postage.
This is bulk and first class?
It's a combination now.
300 off of
Oh, we got
heating
a,
to 300.
So, instead
Take
of the
300
two,
off of heating
300
to
heating and put it
53
to-
and put it to postage.
Okay.
Because we do have the mailing for the warrants for annual town meetings still to do, for one example.
But that's in the town report.
Oh, that's true, it is in the town report, thank you for that. And I do think a couple of $100 probably would be a
Yeah.
bad idea.
but if we went down to 5,000, then we could.
Have a little savings.
Good.
300 for me and 300.
But their actuals
So-
have never been,
It's hard
if you
to-
do that, you're
Right.
lower than any of their actuals.
On heating.
I'm just talking on the bottom line, like all their actuals are
Extravagant.
30,
Yeah.
29.
I wish we were talking thousands and not hundreds.
And so,
Right.
Yeah,
On the lowering part.
mhm.
yeah. So, Ted, there's some...
I would entertain, or just propose, we think about 5,000 for the energy, 300 of the savings goes to postage, and 300 comes off the bottom line.
All right, so how about, we, for the time being, call it a push, go 5,300 on heating, 4,000 on postage, and then with your overall heating analysis bears out, we can then move to 5.
So we're not gonna vote on it tonight? Because we'll wait on his hearing, or just,
Oh, no,
Vote
Jesus,
everything
Yeah, let's,
Yeah,
let's,
that's
let's
just
wrap it up.
I mean, it's just gonna make,
All right,
Because the forecast probably is.
yeah, and then we've gotta go back and include
yeah.
all the other budgets.
Mm. That's
I mean, you
true.
gotta look at actual and
Mhm.
All right. So,
you got the new Buderis for
You could probably find
computer control.
$2 somewhere.
all right, all right, so
You'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean,
5,100 on heating,
Oh,
No.
yeah.
what? Jesus.
A couple hundred.
5,000
Okay.
Yeah.
On,
heating,
If you've never actually done that, does it make sense?
4,000,
Oh, it's still 1,000 more than 190.
4,000 on postage.
yuck.
it's
Okay.
off, it's not gonna be off on much.
All right,
Okay.
so with those changes, moving heating from 56 to 5,000, postage 3,700 to 4,000. Entertain a motion to approve as is.
29,320.
29,320.
So moved.
Second.
Bonnie, Ted, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think they're.
All right, 194.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
going back to 192, if you go back and look at FY 15, 16, and 17 actuals for electric, it's much higher than the 6,800 budgeted. So, I mean, you know, you're taking $600 out of heating, but you're always running a deficit in electric, and you
Right.
have been now for the last 3 fiscal years.
Right.
So, you know,
So the thing to do would be
Add the
Take that
300 to
to change it. How do we go about, since we've moved?
Well, we either
Oh,
unentertain
we
or
can-
we put 300, the
No, you're
300.
no,
entertaining
we
it,
can
then you have
just-
to entertain
we
a
can
motion
un-
to
I know,
revisit.
but I'm just talking how you could move it around. I mean, you could,
Yeah, well, we got
We have
that,
to
but we
vote
have to
to
make a
rescind our
motion
vote. Make a
to,
motion to rescind
I don't know if we make a motion to rescind, isn't it? We make a
Reconsider.
motion,
We can
we've done this
reconsider.
before.
To reconsider.
To
Kirchner has me all
reconsider.
fired up about heating and just,
To
we
reconsider.
skipped right over electric. All right,
Reconsider. Make
All
a
right.
motion to reconsider
So-
line,
all
whatever.
right, so motion to reconsider, we'll take heating to 5,300, that $300 goes to electric. And electric is 7,100.
That sounds good. Put it back on the
Did you
bottom.
mean
Wait,
take
no,
heating to
Heating would stay at
5,000?
5,000.
heating stays at
Heating's
5.
at
He
5,000.
stays at 5, you've just changed
Moves the 300 to
electric
the
to
electric,
7,100
7,100, and
with a
300 to postage.
29,620.
The bottom line stays the same.
right to the bottom line,
Okay,
it's the
yep.
same.
The
Yeah.
bottom line is that
Is everyone good with
presented.
that?
Okay.
Yep.
Entertain a motion to approve town hall for a total of 29,620,
So
just moving numbers around. 5,000 on heating, 7,100 on electric, 4,000 on postage.
So moved.
Connie,
I'll
Ted,
second again, just to
Yeah.
keep it clean.
keep it clean, thank you. Screwed you up the first time. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right.
Like the drinking cups with the balls. Switching them around.
All right, 194, building insurance.
So what we have in there are the actual quotes that we have from our insurance agency.
All right. And can you just share, is this an RFP? Is it something that we put out on a regular basis? If so, how often? Are you just comfortable using the guy in town? Because what's the deal there?
The deal is, a good business practice, I think, is to go out every 5 or 6 years for numbers. If you do it more frequently, I believe insurance companies in particular feel as though you're not going to be around long enough and they're not going to give you as aggressive pricing. So I believe next year we should be going out for pricing again. I've done it once, which I think was 5 years ago, if I remember right. And I'd like to do it next year. We've been very well served by Murphy. When I went out, we were using Murphy prior to us going out for prices last time. They came back the most competitive. You don't know what the future is going to hold, but I think it's a good business practice to do it next year.
And will that go with, when this says commercial package and commercial umbrella, is that for the collective entire town?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, it's all
All right.
on this.
okay.
But no, they provided excellent service, but still, we should be going back out next year.
I think I should take you on some business trips with me. All my clients are putting me out every 3 years. I like the 5-year. So,
Well, maybe municipal is different, I don't know, but I do find, well, Brian, what's your experience, man? I think that if you bounce around too quickly, I'm not sure you get the best pricing out of insurance companies.
Especially for something like health insurance, that's true, and I would imagine it's true for other types of insurance because they want to see at least somewhat of a long-term commitment, and that's kind of the way that they price aggressively with the idea that you're going to stick around for at least 3 or 4 years.
all right. Any other questions on building insurance? Entertain a motion to approve as is.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. 195, town reports.
Town reports, that's the warrant for town meeting.
Yes.
We've already had a special,
Mhm.
and obviously we've got the annual coming up. And the annual
Yeah.
report, which we have reduced significantly over time, the number of annual reports. The only time I made an exception to that was when we had the 275th. People really wanted to have the annual report for the 275th, but very few people asked for the annual report anymore.
All right. And that's also, all right, and that's also the printing of the warrant.
Yes, the printing of the warrant and the annual report. And then so it's annual town meeting and if we have a special,
Yeah.
so that's why we just. that's
So
what
what's
we
your
did.
appetite for trying to go at that again electronically?
Ah,
The warrant?
Yeah, I mean, I know last year you didn't want to do it with, you know.
Well, because I was still healing from the pummeling I took the year
I know,
before.
that's why I'm asking, like, you know,
is that
I figured I'd take the
deal?
opportunity right on camera to see. We can talk
I've
about
got it covered, I mean, we could try it. I still think,
it. It's
I still
asking.
think it's a good idea. No, I'm not gonna say that, no,
Yeah.
because the people decided, but no, I mean, but I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah,
And we could have, I think we projected about, what, $4,000 savings by doing that? Which buys a lot of heat and electricity.
yeah, I mean,
It could be
I'm
a
all
little
for
less than that,
making copies available. I mean, I
Well,
think,
we would always need to make copies
Yes.
available,
Yeah.
plus we could have it, we could have files protected, on the website so people could print their own.
Right.
You know, there were ways to do that.
Oh.
But, no, I mean, there was an overwhelming no, and, you know, when people speak, we should listen, so,
yeah.
but maybe after a couple of years, we should try again. So why don't we say, we'll
Yeah,
make a run at it for FY '20, but,
might be a little too early is what you're saying, huh?
too soon.
All right, other questions on town reports? Entertaining the motion to approve as is, $3,700. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, we gotta speed things up. We're running behind here. So 243.
244, that's the plumbing and
Well,
wiring.
plumbing.
You're telling me to skip over 243?
No, it's just, I mean, it's just, year over year, it's level except for the COLA.
All right, yeah. And 240, right, so 244, 243.
Right,
All right.
yeah.
Questions on those? You're right, and those are just, all right. Entertain a motion to approve 243, 244 as is.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right.
And the next one you're gonna go to is
440.
Mainly, you're gonna let us? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
I'm gonna move it along.
Resistance is futile.
Yes, I know. It is impressive. I mean, it's like
Sure.
half hour before she stepped in and said, you're gonna do it right.
Spent more time with Linda than his wife, probably.
All right, so 440.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was just under
Well, what's it?
yeah, because we paid them at the same time.
Oh, okay, all right, just a timing issue.
Yes.
Okay.
440 sewer purchase of services.
So we are at almost 71% into the year. However, we did a double payment in December, so I don't want to, just because of the timing, that's what I was just asking Linda about. So $1,451 was charged just in December. I think we're gonna come in a little under this year. You know, again, this one is you know, we had it nailed pretty good, I think, for a while. We never really hit the number because you can't really project exactly what the usage is going to be. It's all a product of usage. So, but if you look at, again, if you look at actuals, it's really more like 8,700 than 8,000. And I think, you know, we'll be at least around 8,700 this year. So I would suggest we bump it to 8,700 for next year. Now that we've had a chance to walk through it And, I mean, we can keep it at 8,000 and then look at a transfer, but I think 8,700 looks like a real number.
And this is for?
The water treatment facility over at the school. The school district pays 85% of the expense, and we pay 15%.
Okay, thank you.
And our 15% is 8,700.
It is. And we did successfully make the repairs to the treatment facility. We had a special town meeting, if you recall. And we were able to turn back some money from that. I think, in round numbers, I think the article was 87 or 88,000, and I think we came in around, I think the article was 87,000, and we came in at 68,000. I think we came in about 19.
Yeah, there was, you know, we had Joe in, and there was, we went round and round on that, on, you know, that article, putting money aside for those expenses, but then also setting money aside, which we also did, for essentially a fund to work on replacement, knowing that we're never gonna get there by the time we actually need the replacement.
But it
So
also
really meant-
includes a replacement of membrane, which is a
That's
recurring
right.
expense,
That's
right?
right.
maintenance versus money to set aside to go buy new,
Okay,
two different buckets.
okay.
If we weren't a municipality, DEP would have required the town to have a set-aside fund
Right.
when it was built. But municipalities get a pass on that.
Yeah.
That would have been, I think, 15% of the value of the project.
Okay.
All right,
I'm all for 87.
I'll second 87.
all right, so, motion to approve, sewer at 8,700. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That was an aye for me, I just got a hell of a lot of them in my head right now. All right, so we just did 4912.
912. Workers' comp.
Workers' comp, again, we have the figure that we received from the insurance company,
All right,
$24,859.
questions on 912, guys?
Is that based on an experience rate?
Yes.
And are we lower than one, meaning better than the average?
I believe we are. We have very few workers' comp cases.
I think they call it experience modification rate.
I'm not sure what they call it.
If you're one, you're kind of normal, but if you're over one, you're paying extra.
Yeah, I don't-
Look at it this way, right? Actual in 15 was 30,000 and requested is 24,850.
Usually what workers' comp many times is like a police officer injured on duty. We have one out now who has been out for a few months, who I think will be back fairly soon.
Entertaining a motion to approve 912 as is.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 945,
The rest of the
rest of the
insurance.
insurance.
Yep.
All right,
And again, these are all actuals that we've received.
okay. And also with, when we were talking about insurance before, same organization, kind of bundle,
Yes.
all right.
When we go out for bid, we put the whole package out just as it appears in the budget.
Okay. Questions on 945, guys? All right. Entertain a motion to approve as is.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. Mr. Lowe, thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming in this evening.
Gotta do one.
You didn't do 155.
55.
We have to do 155 IT.
And Paul is here.
Paul, our new
Oh,
town hall
Paul.
IT manager. Paul had been the IT manager for public safety the year prior, and with Gary's retirement, Paul also was awarded the contract for the town buildings, the other town buildings, and he's really doing a very good job for us.
All right, so 155.
It should be.
I don't think we
I know where
Yeah.
from 151 to 161. We don't have 151.
All right. Well, you have
Oh, supplement.
spreadsheet that I gave you tonight that Anarcha put together. So we can use that, and then Paul has backup to just.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Yep.
O'Connor.
Oh, no, I put that up with you, you can have it. Here.
Okay. So 155 MIS,
Paul was here, right?
Mhm.
Let's make one for him.
Here you go.
Oh, there you are. Good luck, they're tough.
all right, Paul,
I'm doing well, how are you?
doing well. All right, so, purchase and services, those are the billable hours that you impose. I'm assuming the decline is a function of Gary going down off
Yep.
relative to you. Okay. A slight increase in repairs. Tell me about what you have planned there.
When I looked at the environment, I just see a lot of aging PCs,
Mhm.
so I just trying to put a realistic number. That's
Yeah.
what I thought would be a realistic number. So
And-
instead of 200, or
Yep.
600. Again, we just kind of move money around, just keep everything level funded.
All right. And Gary shared with you all the information on what we've done so far to this point in terms of leases, and you overheard the conversation around an upcoming copier and your philosophy around leases.
I have no problems with leasing, so yeah, we're gonna continue the leasing. And I broke the spread, I've got a different tool here that I use, but yeah, we're planning on, again, leasing this year, we're getting quotes. So there's two things for me, the server project is just, we purchased a server a while ago. Nothing was really done with it, just finishing the software of that. And so that's gonna be, the work should be done by July, we'll bill in July for that. And then January 2020, basically Windows 7 becomes end of life, so it's no longer supported by Microsoft. So trying to upgrade the PCs prior to that. There's no reason to upgrade an 8-year-old PC to Windows 10.
Yeah.
It's not going to be very productive for anyone.
Yeah.
So again, we put together, it looks like at least 7 new PCs a year and get us, there. The library's pretty much all set. There's a couple of PCs in the library that needs to be tweaked, and it's town hall. We're going to take the oldest PCs, we'll replace the oldest PCs first with the newest PCs.
Okay.
So, and again, the breakdown is, again, the idea is, I believe the longest lease we can engage in is 4 years. So we'll look at spreading the PCs out over 4 years. The server will be the 5th year, and we'll look at cycling through everything
Yeah.
on a
How
5-year
many
schedule.
PCs are we talking about?
I believe it was 42.
42.
That's what I thought.
All right.
And again, we're trying to spread it out again, and what I'm trying to do is do it so that it becomes a flat budget. So once
Yeah.
we get through that 5 years, once we transition to all leases, it's a reasonably flat budget.
Yeah, so this is we were first talked to Gary about this 2 years ago. It might have been even 3. So you're telling me that we did it the first year and it's not been going on since?
I believe there are 2. The lease company they're using right now is an annual lease. I believe there are 2 leases. It's just not in my spreadsheet. It was one number in the first budget. So what I'm doing is breaking things out. So when I talk to you next year, I'll have another one down here for FY 19 leases, so I can see when things change and move, and we know when to purchase in the future.
All right.
But I believe those are 2 leases. So I believe
And
there
those,
were 2
when you
years.
say 2 leases, it was a lease that represented 7 or 8 PCs.
Right. And then
Okay.
another one.
Is there any reduction in PCs due to the dispatching changes over at the police department? Or maybe more people have iPhones and things and they're not going to the library and we don't need all the PCs? I don't know
That's
Yeah,
a library
use of
conversation.
Nobody's volunteered to reduce the
Oh, no, there won't
PCs.
be.
I certainly know public safety is looking at, and again, they're critiquing every purchase, so we're not really, the plan for them is to purchase what they need and want based on where they want to put PCs, not necessarily replace the PCs there. So,
I mean, somebody
that's
needs,
an,
But
I
this,
trust
and that's a
somebody
different
is.
conversation.
This
I think
guy-
I'll be back for public
this
safety.
guy's brand new. You're trying to feed them up to the library, right? I mean, that's a question for library, if they want.
Kelly runs the library pretty, with my interest, so I don't think I'll negotiate there between you and her.
The chief is lowering the number of PCs in the public safety building now.
somebody needs to kind of look at that, I guess.
Well, there's all that equipment that was used by the dispatchers, which certainly doesn't need to.
Probably also, maybe somebody else's bailiwick, but websites. Does everybody have their web information on the town website, or are there kind of independent efforts? And are we doing it the most efficient way?
I mean, you guys utilize virtual town hall, which is a lot of towns use virtual town hall.
Everybody does that, every
And
department and committee.
I'm not quite sure every department's, but believe me, I haven't studied the website.
Ted, I mean, we had agriculture in last week, right? I mean, they had.
Last year, there was some
Oh, I know.
indications
Agriculture being one of them, you know.
they were going their separate way.
Right.
Yeah, we're getting them onto the,
To the town.
We actually did rein that in, because we didn't go forward with, I don't think advisory went forward with approving some of that for last year. And I had spoken with Brad, and I knew that we were going to virtual town hall, and it just made perfect sense to have everybody utilize the one resource.
Absolutely.
And we had one very large training session over at the Houghton Building on how people can do that. That almost every board and committee or department that needs to use it attended, not all of them, but almost all of them did. It was I think it was a 3-hour training session, and yeah, that's absolutely where we want to go.
It's a great platform for towns. I mean, each department can manage their own space and stuff.
all right. And the increase in equipment, that was a function of the leases and popping that up? Is
Yeah, is that
the equipment line?
Yep.
Yep, the AC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions on MIS? All right. Motion to approve MIS as is, 65,098.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right.
Thank you for taking it easy on me.
You're new, first year. Yeah.
Next year will be different.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I think we're fine. Thank you.
The Neshoba Regional School District.
Hopefully they won't.
How are you folks?
Unless it's really bad, but it's just what they're talking about. Have you reached out to that company?
I haven't researched, I haven't had time to research it.
Let's see here. You guys have a budget workshop coming up
Check them over
this
when they-
Saturday.
Oh, yes,
This Saturday.
yes, we do.
So the game plan this evening, you guys are talking to us about all the capital expenses,
Exactly.
right?
Yes, that's right. And I brought with me our new facilities director.
All right, sorry.
Rob?
Yes.
And
And he's gonna help me go through this. So anyway, I put four items for next year, for fiscal year 19. And as far as a priority, I put the most weight on the mechanicals for heating replacement.
Mm-hmm.
If there's an aging, failing Allerton legacy system, and Rob, maybe you can elaborate on that?
So there's a new boiler going in over at the Sawyer School, and the communication system that we have now can't efficiently talk to the boiler and the end user, basically the rooms, the classrooms. When our HVAC electrician tech is setting up and monitoring the systems, he can't communicate with the individual rooms, so he doesn't know exactly what's going on, what the temperatures are, and try to troubleshoot anything from the computer. He basically has to go into the unit himself and either turn it on manually or shut it off manually. Sometimes the teachers can turn it on and shut it off manually, and then they forget to turn it back on or shut it off, so it's not a very efficient way of running the system. Especially with a brand new boiler going in, we would try to get that as efficient as possible.
Okay.
The high school is totally done the way we'd like to see it.
Yes.
So, and next in line of priority would be the column repair on the Emerson building.
So that, on that last time, it's $191,587.
Right, and I have two
For
quotes.
communications.
Yes. Actually, I have it spread out over a number of years. Only the last 2 years would be implementing in the classrooms, the actual thermostats in the classrooms, where, without going into too much detail, it's very technical. And I'm not so sure that I understand it as well as maybe Rob, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I know some of the background. There's basically the main computer that talks to the boiler, and then from there, there's certain cards. I think there's 4 or 5 cards that are associated with that spread out throughout the whole building to talk to each one of the unit vents. But there's, you know, upgrading that, there's all new wiring that has to go in, so it's a pretty extensive project to bring this all up to speed.
And all in would be, actually, it's less expensive if we did it all at once. You know,
Okay.
I think it's about $20,000 cheaper. But the proposal that we had broke it out over 5 years, so,
Is there by chance a return on this investment?
well, we'd be able to
Saving
regulate.
some heat or
Yes,
something?
regulating the heat would be, you know, definitely a plus for us. Right now, having our electrician run around the building, turning thermostats up and down and trying to regulate, you know, this brand new boiler when it goes in place. It's not very efficient at all.
Just, so there's some clarity here too. Some of the stuff that's on here, we haven't really actually had a full discussion, either at the school committee level or at the budget and warrant level. So
Yeah.
some of the questions you're asking now will most we haven't actually vetted at this point. So
Alright.
this is information, so you guys know what's on the table, and
Yeah, no, very helpful.
we have those
And
questions too.
Take notes so you don't have to ask the same questions. All right.
So the next item I had was the column repair at the Emerson building.
Mm-hmm.
And without replacing them, which would be very expensive, as you probably know, having your own replaced here.
Not replaced. I mean, we're trying to get them replaced.
Oh, well.
You know, it's a multi-year project.
We brought in a company that does restoration to the columns, and apparently the columns aren't in as bad condition as we thought. What has happened is, over the years, we painted over vents. They're wooden columns, and they have little vents in them. So in certain places, the water will collect, and it just can't dry out. So, and they have some architectural, it must be almost like a putty thing that they correct, you know, they can fix it with. And to do that and to fix the soffit above it would be $15,700.
Okay.
And then either one of these, as far as priority, I would say the floor replacement would be next, and that would be in the library. The carpeting needs to be replaced in the library. It's worn. Kids sit on the floor in there sometimes when they have reading, and it really is in need of repair and replacement.
This is all Emerson?
This isn't Emerson, no, this is at the Sawyer building.
Oh, Sawyer, okay.
Yeah, this is at the Sawyer building. And interior painting, this is continuing the process that we have in place for this year.
Can I just go back to flooring replacement for a second?
Sure.
So I remember you had this on an earlier version, and I think the quote was lower. Was that just an estimate? You actually got responses back, and that's what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have quotes for everything. That's here. And the interior painting, that's basically, we're going to continue what we had for this year.
And so that would be rank 4 then?
4, yes.
Okay. And I think I heard you say, when you mentioned around the mechanicals, that if it were all done in one shot, it'd be some savings. But
right.
Some of the, particularly on that one, it's a rather healthy number. So spreading it out, very much like the philosophy, and by spreading, the savings up front, in your opinion, is not as big as, it's more beneficial to spend it out, is what you're saying?
Well, at this point, yes.
And I'm sure school committee will probably dig into that a little bit more philosophically on how they, okay.
And also, I want to make mention of the capital project at the high school. And I'm sure that you've heard across the lines. We're actually going to have a presentation tomorrow night at a school committee meeting about...
Is that what's going on? I mean, I don't have police at this meet. Like, you guys have been really dusting it up lately. You had to bring police in?
Not me personally.
I know. Where is Ms. Ramasco? She didn't even want to show up this evening.
She didn't have an escort.
Wow, you had to bring in the police.
Well, anyway, we have a big capital item.
I just wanted to see how she was going to react, that's all.
We have a big capital item at the high school. It's coming in at about $300,000.
Care to share those
Sure.
pieces of
She's
paper?
preparing it before she passes it. Hold on.
She's like, oh, you're going to make fun of me with the police? I'm going to hold on to the numbers.
And this would be part of our normal...
Oh.
Okay, it says that it's a DEP violation, but I don't want you to think that we were in violation of anything. The regulations changed. They brought it to our attention in August, and since then...
It's so nice of them.
I know, it's really nice of them, but it has to be done by September 1st. So we were hoping that we were going to be able to put some of this off, saying, you know, that maybe something different was going to be done with the high school. But moving forward, we have to have this done, so it has to be part of this budget. We can't, even if we were going to do something different with that building, we can't.
How do they determine that there's
A
a deficiency? I mean, this is a major bill, and how, I mean, do they take core drawings, or do they just declare it?
DEP came down with new regulations on what they're putting in the ground, basically, the gray water, we'll say. Not the gray water, but what's leaching into the ground from the septic system. So behind the sewer treatment plant at the high school is the leach field. It's in between 117 and the sewer treatment plant. There's 3 or 4 wellheads that are within what they call the wellhead protection area. So that's what's driving all this, is the regulations. They've lowered the limits, which basically widen
And
these
they
areas.
lost the concept of grandfathering.
Exactly. So that's what puts us in this position right now, where we have to basically relocate the leach field.
And this is cheaper than relocating the wells.
Yes, because on the
Absolutely.
properties adjacent to the school, to the high school, the wells that are there, we can't get them far enough away from the leach field in order, there's not enough property there. Property owners don't have enough property to get them outside of that.
And our fabulous
A lot of wells.
state representatives that serve this town, are we applying any pressure to them to say, you know, what are you doing to assist?
As far as the legislators go,
Yeah.
there's no legislative remedy here for this. There's,
Just
And they're not gonna.
How many additional towns besides Bolton in the state of Massachusetts are being sucked up into this?
I have no idea.
I believe the engineer, I was talking to the engineer last week, I believe he's dealing with 5 different school districts right now with this same issue.
And when you say the wellheads, that's drinking water?
Drinking water.
Where is the leach
It'd
field?
be
gonna
interesting
go?
to have the discussion, the well is 400 feet down or something, you know, through bedrock, and the leach field is up here.
Neil?
Just to add to this, so one thing that we have asked administration to look into is that if this leach field needs to be put in, that it's put in so no matter what gets done with the high school, whatever remedy it is, whether it's reconstructing the high school, whether it's a new building or whatever, that this leach field
Would serve
ideally
a new
would
building.
serve the new building. We're not duplicating the effort and wasting money on that.
That'll all come up tomorrow night. The engineer from On-Site Engineering, Dave Formato, will be at the school committee meeting tomorrow night. He'll go through all that.
Bob?
Now, I just want to make sure that everybody who's hearing about this for the first time realizes that the leach field in its present location was there before any of these other wells were dug. And at the time those wells were dug, there was no violation.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a recent change in the regulations that have all of a sudden extended.
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
And-
not all of it is adding up. That's why I was asking, grandfathering, what are we doing in terms of talking to a state rep? How many other, so DEP shorts some money. So hey, let's make a new rule and shake down Bolton for 300 grand.
I don't think it should go that far. I think the issues is, they tested the wells, is there an issue with the wells? Is there a potential issue with the wells?
It doesn't matter. The DEP has ruled and said, you're gonna do this.
But they don't do this just out of the top of their head. And I've worked with DEP for years, and they're not
But there's
arbitrary
no,
and capricious.
there's no logic on this one.
They're not going to wait for any pollution to show up. They've made a new regulation, they understand the effect it has on different towns and school districts, and they're sticking to it anyway. And they're just expecting the school districts to adapt.
And we went
The
to
only way for us to adapt is to move the leach fields.
And you have to be careful moving that leach field so that you don't screw up a master plan for a new high school.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, there's about 4 square feet that.
All right.
Oh, boy. That's a lot of leach field.
So this is for the regional high school, so that's not just for Bolton, 300,000, right?
Right.
Correct.
So that will come through our assessment?
Yes.
You're in here talking about a fiscal year 19 project, which you can't start until July 1st, and you're gonna get it done by the end of September?
It's gonna have to be.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Better get a variance.
Glad you took the job, huh?
Very good faith.
Yeah,
You must have a big shovel.
big as we can get, as fast as it can go.
You know, if all 3 towns did it as an article, as opposed to something in the budget, the project could be started in mid-May. Instead of July, it would buy you 6 weeks.
What's the downside to that?
Yeah, well, that's just my question too.
Well, depends, I mean, if we're gonna fund it through the assessment anyway, then we'd be funding it through available cash, through available funds. So if the 3 towns had an article for $100,000 apiece, also from available funds, I'm not sure, to me it would be a wash.
Yeah.
I guess my only concern is...
Oh, no, it wouldn't be.
You'd be taxing
It
people
wouldn't be.
less.
That's right, you're right. I'm wrong, and Nanotka's right.
Oh my God.
Would the 2 out of
I didn't have it recorded. Oh wait, I do.
Would the 2 out of 3 rule still hold if there were separate articles?
It would, yeah. So it should be in the budget, it should be in the budget. I'm not repeating what I just said.
All right.
Just look at it this way, Brad, it's not 300 grand, it's like 100 grand.
No, it's...
We just made 200,000.
Sticker shock was 300,000.
Yeah, man, it's...
It's only low 6 figures as opposed to mid.
Yeah, sounds much better now.
All right, yeah. We remind you, we bought a town common last year for 200.
Oh, yeah?
Did you put the leaf in? No. It's only a pipe.
Right. All right, so then you've got some flooring repairs at the high school. And again, so similar concept, all these numbers that you show us for the high school, it's the total number that you're looking at for the project to be completed, but effectively a third what we're dealing with in the town of Bolton. Okay.
Right. I just wanted you to have some insight into that.
No, thank you.
That when there's, when the budget comes around, that's in.
Okay. And then a water tank. So what's happening there?
There are 2 hot water supply tanks at the high school. One of them is currently offline. It's decommissioned, and the other one is on its last leg, basically. So that needs to be addressed
Mhm.
immediately.
So is it fair to say a similar concept that regardless of what happens with the school in the future, that potentially could be repurposed in some capacity or no?
Probably not, but
Okay.
we can't wait.
Mhm. All right, and so pickup truck and used facilities vehicle. And so the pickup truck with a plow is specifically for the high school?
No.
No, that would be a district
That's a
vehicle.
facilities.
Okay.
related.
So
Yeah.
it's a district vehicle, so it would hit other schools in the
Yes.
district? Right. And that's to supplement whatever DPW departments do, or?
DPW does
Does
not
not.
do any of the plowing or treatment of the roadways or parking lots in any of the towns. Private
Right.
contractors take care of the school
Okay.
district, and with efforts from internally too, as
Yeah.
well as from us.
So it's required to have this even though you have a contract to do the clearing of the parking lots for all the streets?
A lot, if we have snow that comes in during the day, response time for the contractors to get back out every squall come through, to aid in, keeping the roadways open. They're not doing bulk, cleanup, but just to aid them in cleaning things up.
And again, as Neil has mentioned, this hasn't gone before
Yeah.
our school committee yet, so
Yeah.
we don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
Who would be the driver? Who would be the phone man?
Good grounds department. Yeah.
And the used vehicle for facilities director going from building to building, and that's, again, throughout the district?
Yes.
And the current vehicle that is being used is what?
There is none.
And so this makes more sense than you being reimbursed mileage for your personal car?
It'd be a multi-purpose. It wouldn't be just for me. We have a lot of times we're moving stuff all over the place. Tables, chairs, helping out food services, moving materials around. It wouldn't, necessarily just be a vehicle for the facilities director. It'd be a multi-purpose vehicle. But it would be used, to travel back and forth from all buildings.
And again, that would be spread across the 3 towns, and it hasn't been looked at by our school committee, so.
Yeah.
I just.
No, I would hope that they're gonna ask similar questions.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, just, trying to get a better understanding, right? I mean, I think it makes sense, right? You've gone out and you hire contractors to keep your parking lots clear. Keep them clear, right?
We're replacing a 2003 pickup truck with a plow that we have now that's basically rotting away. I was underneath it probably a couple months ago and pushing the actual bed up off of the frame. So we have, some vehicles that are needed for replacement just from the sheer, safety issue that we have with them.
Okay.
So the replacement of the transportation vans, are those the big green ones we're
Mhm.
talking about? And that's the 2 large vans, not the minivan?
Not the minivan.
Do you get a resale value at all?
Yes, we
for those?
surplus them.
And then you put it back into this budget, or you just
Well,
into
it
your
goes
general fund?
into our general fund.
And I'm reading replacement of handicap van. I'm not aware of a handicap van. I get it, but I'm
Yeah,
just.
there is one.
Which
With a
one
lift
is
on
that?
it.
In Lancaster.
That's not the high school though, because this says high school. Oh, district-wide. I see, yeah. Yeah, that's the only one. And it's needed more at Lancaster than anywhere else?
Presently, that's basically where we store it, wherever it's needed, we use it.
All right,
Too bad those things get old, right?
I know, really.
Friggin' quick.
other questions? We,
No, long time.
any other questions?
No, and it'd be interesting to see where you go with this.
We know where one of them is.
Well, choice.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought you were supposed to be able to sent you the communication that Kelly sent me. I thought you said something.
I told you I'd be available anytime, there and I was not going to be yesterday. You got the phone?
I didn't need it, my exchanges next Tuesday.
All right, library trustees.
I just asked my questions now.
Right?
Hello.
Okay.
I have library trustees as 161 in the agenda, but I know it's not because 161 is town clerk. 610.
Hi, how are you?
I have some handbook.
It's 6:10. I have a question right away. I'm so confused.
So there are three handouts. There's the budget overview, reprise from the tradition of budget overviews. And then there's details on the budget, there's the personnel, and then the overall budget, which contains some corrections that we caught at the last minute.
No. Connie, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. I apologize for the big spot here. I've increased the degree of difficulty.
I miss your mind, as well as I hate.
These are extras.
Okay. Yeah, we can have that. All right, so let's start with handout number 1, which is entitled FY19 Bolton Public Library Budget Request Form, which features the trustees, myself, Pam Sikansky, and Tricia Neron. So just in terms of FY18 to date, just an update for you, sort of reminding you that most of the people in our town have library cards, which is good. We track that number. Most of the circulation at the library, despite the fact that we're in a network, actually uses the Bolton Public Library. So 80% of our population circulation comes from Bolton residents. There's a question in previous budget discussions about sort of money that the town turns over back to the town as part of its operating procedure. And that primarily comes from the copier and from overdue fines and overdue notices. Mostly the copier, and we'll get to that in detail, but the copier runs about $1,300 a year and generates between $4,000 or $5,000 a year in revenue. So it's a minor profit center for the library. We'll go into it in more detail, but in terms of the FY19 budget, which you have in front of us, we're proposing no changes to the open hours or to staffing. Those remain where they have for years, as has the books and material line, which we continue to calculate at 17.5% of the total budget. We did, as a result of last year's work, sort of modify the formula by which we calculate wages, and we've taken that forward this year as well, so we're doing the same thing. Just as an update, 4 of the staff members are ineligible for step increases. 2 are at the top of their pay grades, and 2 are not part of the step program. There are others who are, if you get steps this year, we figured those into the budget. In terms of the staffing for part-time staff, we've calculated that based on 50 weeks per year, which is down from the 52 weeks per year we had used previously in the updated last year. And we've calculated vacation time at 180 hours a week at the lowest part-time staff position. And just to give you an update on where we are, as of the last checking with the town treasurer, it looks like we'll be maybe about 7K under for the year, which is about 3.7% of the wages, which is an improvement. I think last year we had been looking at 12K and 6.3%, so we have knocked down the amount of overage there. I will say that we continue to sort of see life events in our staff. So we have one of our staff members who's fortunate enough to be going on maternity leave this year, which sort of is among the things that can change the budget during the year. Just turning it over briefly, reminding you of sort of what the library does, and we've broken this up into sort of our mission statement about serving the community to be a resource for education, culture, and recreation. We're circulating about 80,000 items a year, which is more or less constant over the last several years since the new library edition has sort of reached steady state. We have focused recently on sort of outreach and engaging the community, and as a result of that, we think that our attendance in programs is significantly up. So we've got a 19% increase in attendance at children's programs, and as an example, our summer reading program is up 51%, and 20% over FY15 and FY16, which is really something we want to see. And if you look at it, we've talked about this, I believe, in the past. Sort of if you look at sort of the amount of value that we provide to the community in terms of rented material, rented program space, etc. The tool that we use through the library network estimates that at about $1.8 million a year, which is substantially more than the budget we'll be asking for shortly. In terms of sort of being an educational and civic sort of organization within the community, we make the program room available. It's been used 341 times, which is a lot, by boards and committees as well as community groups. And this is up certainly over FY15 and over FY16. And one of the things we've done this year is we've actually brought in some new software that makes it even easier for people to apply for access to the program room. So we expect that number to even go up further. We work with other organizations within the town. So we've been collaborating with the Bolton Historical Society on some of the displays. If you guys have been in to see the original 1831 map of Bolton that was on display for a while. We've also worked with the Conservation Commission, and we have a program with the local schools and local school libraries to coordinate sort of reading lists and reading materials. And we believe that's directly visible in our summer reading program, which has been good.
Yeah, we had last week, we had the Agricultural Commission in, and they had a line item that they were working with you guys to identify some, books around gardening and agriculture that weren't necessarily in the library.
Okay.
And they're looking to add to your collection, I believe. Is that?
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. We've also been, obviously our goal is to provide opportunities for all ages, including ebooks, e-audiobooks, sort of chances to talk about those. We're also have been having success with special materials around science, technology, engineering, and math education. So you can actually rent a little electronic design kit, Makey.
Check it out. Talk about it.
It's great fun. And that actually we put programs around that which are quite popular. And if you've been in lately, you've seen that we also provide gallery space to local artists within the program room. And then finally, we seek to improve ourselves over time. Sort of trying to figure out what's next. You can find our long-range plan online. We started that a couple of years ago, and have been implementing some of the changes that we identified in that, with an example being sort of community engagement. So our greater participation in Facebook, for example, recently has been a result of sort of us getting feedback there that,
Yeah, sort of staff recommendations.
yeah, exactly. Sort of when the Facebook Bolton group comes up and says, hey, it would be great to go to this new museum, sort of we use it as an opportunity to point out that we actually have museum passes so people can get access to the museum. So that's where we are, who we are, how we've done for the last year. Any questions before we get into numbers?
Yeah, one thing.
Sure.
On figuring out the book expenditure,
Sure.
what is that formula again? I know it's the previous year's budget, right?
No, it's basically the way that it looks out is the books and materials budget needs to be 17.5% of the total budget.
Of the total, of which budget am I looking at? So it's
Of the
2019?
total, of
Very bottom line.
Of the very bottom line, so it's the combination of the non-books and material budget and the books and material budget.
Okay, so but what I'm saying is the figure I'm gonna use is last year's 2018 budget to figure it out?
No,
Or the
no,
2019?
When you propose a budget, it's 17.5%.
It doesn't-
But this is the conversation that we've
It
had.
seems, right,
It has to be 16.
it seems like you wouldn't be able to compute such a number.
Well, I know, because if I
But-
take
But you
four,
can.
if I take
74,
431, I have
Hold on, yeah,
I'm
just,
looking at
I'm just,
number one.
for the time being, I'm looking at the numbers they give us. 74,388 divided by, within 425, it represents
Right.
17.5%. My question, Ninochka, they have a budget that they came in with. The budget that I see in the form, salary, wages, I have a total of, because COLAs have been factored in, they have non-COLA.
Oh, okay.
So you've got
287,
287,612. Okay, all right. So if that's the case, we have a total library of 431,802.
That's what I have.
All right.
With the
So
COLA.
it's-
With the COLA, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 431,802, 17.5%. That's a book
75,
of, that's 75,565. So it's already reflected in this budget, and
Right.
it actually,
Supersedes the number that I did
Yeah,
here, which was
right.
pre-COLA.
yep.
Okay, that's why I was going on. Thank you.
They walked in with this,
I know.
right? Because they are not to adjust, no,
Where
just-
are your latest and greatest coming
from our budget.
Here, from
Got it.
610, wherever it is, 610.
Did you hear what she called you? I should be so lucky.
I don't know why.
Ninochka, do you have a 610, 431,802?
Yes.
Yes.
I,
Alright, Ted, I don't know where you are, so.
Mine is actually
This
greater.
is different.
Alright, any questions?
Just a real quick, if I wanted to learn more about that $1.838 million retail value and how you came up with it,
Yeah.
what should I ask?
You can ask
If you
Kelly.
Google library calculator,
Brad, we gotta talk about heat.
We don't have to go into this.
no,
I just-
Brian, if you
Yeah.
look at, just Google library calculator or library value calculator, it's at ala.org, but I can't tell you exactly where.
Okay.
ALA would be American Library Association.
So this is what you would see, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that would be what you would see if you had filled it in with all of the numbers
Circulation
from
numbers.
FY17.
Yeah.
How much your actual heat costs running? I know last year we upped it, we were pretty generous last year, maybe we were too generous. It's a level now. I'm wondering what your experience is.
So, I actually don't, sorry, Ted, I lost my login privileges to our spiffy town, so I should, town website for utility consumption, so I should get new ones from you, and I can tell you what the tracking is, but I don't know what it is
Yeah,
tracking this
I'm
year.
trying to find it here in the
I'm
variance
looking.
report.
It's kind of hard to tell though, because we're not hitting the big heating months yet.
Yeah.
So to look at these
Just
6
felt
months,
that way.
when you have, when you have January, February, March still to come, it's kind of hard.
heating through December.
6 months.
Yeah, we're at the,
They're like 25%.
Yeah,
yeah, which is, it's too early to tell whether we're going to have a,
yeah,
considering it was 70 degrees and,
right.
and 10 degrees within a week.
And it's supposed to go up to 50 degrees.
So Ted, my thought is, we've had the vast majority of departments in, they've got heating line items.
Yeah, we've kept it low.
Yeah,
And this is low.
yeah, so.
In that respect, it's fine. No, I was just wondering what the actual is.
Yeah. Other questions on library? Anything else to share? You care to share?
No.
Okay.
Kind of late tomorrow morning, 6:30, so
we're all
you know,
tapped
I'm
out.
ready to go.
If no other questions, entertain a motion to approve library as is what I have, which is a total of $431,802.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
You could actually have the advisory committee and at the library if they want.
Yeah, certainly stay warmer than.
Oh, how many layers have you got on?
Tonight, significantly less than I had before.
Grab water.
You can get
Oh.
I got it. I got it. Just been- No, that was what they wanted.
Oh.
I don't have it on state press.
Yeah, Ted, there's been so, I mean, this photocopy is what we all got from the very beginning. I've got entire sheets that I'm missing. Look at this. Look at this. I go from 424 down to 4 to 510. No FY19.
I have I'm just gonna replay it.
Yeah, they're in here somewhere, but I immediately was able to go to 610.
Oh, here it is. Here's another one.
Yeah.
It's,
After what?
after, it's 4 pages over.
All right. So, yeah, we say it every year, there's gotta be an easier way. It's still a effing disaster on why it can't be printed. Really, like, everyone gets their budget in on time, it's real simple, it's a process, no one gets it in, or 2 or 3 holdouts, they wanna make a change, this gets printed, it's, you'd think it could be done easily, it never is. All right, we got other
You
items.
do it like you manage a project. If it comes in late, the price goes down 5% a month.
Yeah,
I like that. High your budget. If it comes in late, 1% every day.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's tough.
I like it.
Nanasco,
Guess what?
you
They'll
know what?
all get them in on time.
I mean, you would be the keeper of that. If you're okay with that, then. All right, so when we were together last, you guys asked me to include additional items for our discussion. One was capital planning policy discussion. I saw some stuff Brian sent around to us, if I remember correctly. We're also going to talk about a revenue discussion, snow and ice, and that might have been the 3.
Yeah, and we're gonna
Yeah. So the snow and ice, we have been, again, you know, when I first came onto this committee and, you know, Bob Sagansky was involved, we have constantly danced around snow and ice. Do we have it at 180? Do we move it up? You know, Bob, just to fill you in, we got some, you know, a longer run of actuals from Nanachka. Ted put together, you know, essentially a 1, 2, 3 standard deviation and, you know, all that. And really the consensus was we could keep it at 180. I mean, we probably could move it to 190 or 2, and it wasn't gonna, kill us. But, moving up anything past that, we would start running the risk of, prematurely taxing. So, Ted, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but what I took from your analysis last week was you thought we should remain at 180. Is that?
That was my conclusion, that at the 180, 10% of the time, or 11 actually, it says, will be having an expense that's less than the 180 that we budget. 90% of the time, we're going to be above the 180. So we, if that's what we want, that's what the numbers say we'll get statistically. Brian did bring up there was some best practices offered by Department of Local Services or something, but we agreed, I guess we'd hear more about those maybe, or whatever.
It was just the document that I sent, which was the best practice that the Mass Municipal Association had come out with their fiscal policy committee in January 2016. And what they say is to adopt an experience-based target for snow and ice and a plan to cover extraordinary expenses. The target could be expressed as a multi-year average of actual expenses. I think we had the 10 years of data showing that the average was like 345, which seems incredibly high to have as a budget. Was it 375?
337.
337. And I think we had talked about possibly raising it to 200, which I would support.
But ours is historically based.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel as though you guys are saying the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, best practice is actual averages, right? And that number comes out to 330. Ted takes the actuals, runs a distribution, analysis, and 90% of the time we're above the 180. So to what degree do we want to?
200 would be maybe 84% of the time you're above the 180.
Yeah.
Reading my right, and then 14% of the time you've collected too much money and you're not spending. But maybe you've only collected a little too much.
Yeah, but
Well, one of the things that I would consider, and I have not followed this closely, is I believe there's a change in the rules about how you pay for snow and ice overage. Has there been a change in the Municipal Modernization Act or something like that, Nanachka?
Not that affects snow and ice. You can still overspend it. So if we overspent it, and did not have enough free cash to pay for it, we could raise it on the VCAP the following year.
The following year,
Yep.
Okay. But was
So
there
then
also?
you tax people.
Was
yeah.
there
So Bob, what you're talking?
I
some
don't think
change
so.
Huh?
I don't think so. But there was something, you used to be able to amortize it, and I think that went away. I'd have to look at it.
Or
There was
the
something that
selectmen
didn't apply
had
to-
more authority or something,
Yeah, it
something
was-
like that to apply free
Can't
cash
remember what it
against
was.
it.
What
or
you're referring
returns.
to, Bob, there's no doubt, what you're referring to, it has allowed each department to kind of move money more freely
Right.
within.
Okay.
And so that has
been
definitely helped out Nanachka, it's helped out us, they haven't had to come in
Okay.
for after every little transfer, right?
But that's not a specific snow and ice
Yeah.
issue.
Right.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, as I'm sure you're aware, there's, especially a couple of the past years, we've even, we've blown so much over snow and ice that we had an article.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing that we're not so sure there's gonna be, Nanachka's gonna be able to find enough money.
But then what happens, so the following year, you recap, which essentially comes out to be the same only a year later than what you had done previously,
Well, do you
right?
still have the
Pretty
big,
much.
do you still have the big, do you still have the big spreadsheet where you put, the cover sheet and you have a snow and ice reserve for it and all that
Yes.
stuff?
Yeah.
You still have
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So that $100,000 at the bottom,
Right,
that
that's
is
kind of
tax
like-
capacity,
Right.
right? That's tax capacity that you're putting aside. So the proposition you have is that you've got some better information now about how varied the snow and ice budget is, but at the same time, your returns, the amount of money that gets returned at the end of every year by departments is diminishing, right?
Well, you know what, it depends. Like last year, we had a huge turnback because we had vacancies, you know, so it really does fluctuate depending on, it's mostly personnel vacancies that cause
You know,
these
but,
big turnbacks.
so what you've got to, I mean, it's the same balancing game, the rules are a little different, but it's the same balancing game of, I don't want to overtax, but on the other hand, what if I get caught short? I don't want to add to next year's tax rate either, right? And so it's a balancing act between.
You're trying to get somewhere where, like, if you do go over, you have enough free cash to pay for it, right? So you don't have to tax the next year, but
Right, so the other thing to remember is if you raise it to 200 and you only spend 180, that's $20,000 and it still stays with the town, it just becomes part of that turnback stuff that you try to avoid.
So if you raise it to 200 now, you're taxing now for that, right? Whereas if you don't raise it and you have a shortfall, then you tax it next year.
Right.
So whether you tax it this year or whether you tax it next year,
or you
may not have to
tax the
it.
200,000 and we only spend 150.
Then you
know, it's not like the people get this tax money back.
Right.
No,
exactly. It just rolls to free cash for the next year.
Exactly.
It makes us all.
But then we're
so my feeling is
exactly.
you keep it at 180 is my personal
Me too,
opinion.
because then you're overtaxing, and I would wait.
You need to
see-
tax them for the real thing.
Exactly.
Tax them for the real thing.
Yeah,
I'm there too.
Yeah, I mean,
Just when.
I'm between 180 and 2, and I'm inclined to say, I feel as though we've, again, I referenced Bob. I mean, we would have this conversation when Bob was on, when I first joined, right?
You'll have it every year.
Exactly. No, and I think it's something that we just need to do. We need to just continue to look at actuals and experience and see, when do we make a call and choose it?
But your parameters change every year. That's why you have to have this discussion.
Yeah.
Because the amount of free cash that you start with is different every year.
That's
the
right.
kinds of projects that are coming down the pike
And
are
that's a
different
good point.
every
What
year.
if you all of a sudden have only 200,000 in free cash? When you start your budget cycle, you're going to bump up, you know, or
Right.
you're going to look at
You're
things
gonna
differently.
have to buffer that somehow.
Right. That's true.
In order to make sure you don't get caught short. I mean, I would do everything I could to avoid rolling it into next year's taxes because you don't know how high next year's taxes are going to be anyway, right? Don't forget, the $100,000 doesn't apply to anything that's a Proposition 2.5 override. So you don't want to add to that, so you want to look at your turnback history, stuff like that, and so you've got to examine this question every year. It's not a static model.
And as we collect more data, the confidence levels on this normal distribution.
Yeah, but given that this is once a year, your confidence is going to grow very slowly.
Yeah, so you know what, then Oscar, Bob brings up a good point. I mean, how difficult would it be for you to run the I mean, you gave us.
That's as far back as I can go.
No. Can you go the same distance with turnbacks that you and the previous accountant were able to find, so we could measure that and
see how much that varies?
I'd have to see what report, I know what I mean, I could do 3 years, 4 years, but
Yeah.
I don't know what, I'm sure, I gotta find it.
Now, that's interesting, though, if our budgeting process gets more rational and we do the things that we're supposed, not that our budgeting process is irrational, but as we begin to move towards best practices, theoretically, the turnbacks will be less and less because the department budgets will be more on target.
We've been doing that for quite a while.
I think it's personnel changes.
And you're seeing some results of that too, except for strange things like vacancies, and personnel vacancies that, I mean, that is getting better. And, at some point, you may find yourself squeezing that to the point where you've got to protect yourself by raising the snow and ice budget. But, my gut feeling is unless there's a compelling reason to do it, this group isn't going to do it. And, you've got some doubts. So I don't see you doing it. There's certainly nothing I've heard that makes it sound like it's a great thing to do this year. I mean, also, you don't know how big the snow and ice deficit's gonna be in any given year too. Plus you're making, this projection is for what, 18, 19 months out,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, a year from now.
It would be interesting to graph the turnbacks, though, because
Right.
it's a metric that, and that is not suitable for doing any kind of standard deviation analysis.
No.
That'd just be fit the curve linear.
Right.
Just see if it has a direction.
It'd be interesting, well,
Do a scatter.
it has been tending smaller, particularly as a percentage of the
Yeah, that's
budget.
the other thing, you gotta think about the budget.
Right.
It's not, just don't look at absolute numbers, look at it as a
It's going
percentage
to
of the
become
budget.
more and more purely personnel seniority and.
Like last year or the year prior, it was 400,000, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
really high.
Yeah, I mean, and then the other big drivers
Have to get talking
that
point at the town.
really swing this thing back and forth, I mean, is the stuff that the treasurer was talking about last week. Health insurance.
Yeah, we don't have the health insurance yet.
No, but right, I mean, those have been some big swings, even both ways. I mean, 2 years ago, Donna came in and said, we've got a $70,000 savings on health insurance, right? You know, so those, between health insurance and then the retirement, not OPEB, but just the retirement number, we are seeing some big jumps. And, you know, now they seem to be going one way.
They're gonna continue to go one
Yeah.
way.
So, yeah, so I would like to, you know, as far as I'm concerned, regarding snow and ice, I think we don't finalize this whole thing, I mean, until, you know, March. I think we're gonna talk about it, Nanochka, if you could do your best, and I may even have some notes, depending upon how far you can go back. I think as though I pinned down Julie a couple of years
Right.
to give me a number on turnbacks, so I can look through my records. But I think that could be helpful. But yeah, I think we also just continue the conversation, and we still have a few weeks we can vote on snow and ice on that front. So capital planning policy discussion. So Brian, thanks Bob. You know, Brian sent around, and Brian, jump in wherever. I don't want to, you know, put words in your mouth. You know, we as a group, you know, formalized a policy, you know, from the work that we were all doing with the GFOA, and we have, you know, shared that with the selectmen. You know, we got input from Nanochka as well as Donna. I didn't get the sense, I don't know if we talked about it when Kristen was in with us last
I don't
week,
think so.
but I didn't get
She's
the
in the
sense.
same.
She's of the same philosophy.
Yeah.
So, as far as I'm concerned, you know, Brian, what you shared with us, I'm good with. I don't feel as though we need to make any changes. Personally, I'm okay with moving forward, but I also want to open it up to others on the committee that may have questions or things like that. All right.
So then, just to be clear, we're gonna go with when it comes to capital, like, capital requests that become articles, we're gonna require initiation of the project within 1 fiscal year of approval and completion within 3 unless there's some.
Yeah, they need to come back with an
Extenuous
update with
Right.
valid reasons why
Yeah.
it's gonna be more than 3 years.
And we're delegating to the capital planning committee, putting in place some sort of a monitoring, just check-in system.
Yeah,
I think
I
just
don't.
having something that you can tell people when they come and they're
Yeah.
like, okay, they're gonna hold it, you know, it's been kind of loosey-goosey, and now at least if there's a policy.
Exactly,
People
but
might
even, yeah, completely agree, but even as the way Brian phrased it, I actually liked, because I like the idea of some flexibility and openness on the back end, like a big project, right?
Well, of
I don't
course,
wanna-
you're not gonna build a library in a year.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just not interested
But
in.
even for small projects, there may be valid mitigating reasons why it hasn't gone to schedule, and we at least need to listen to that before we
Yeah.
claw back the money.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
looking to put a whole mess of
Yeah.
additional
Yeah.
rules around.
I agree. And it's not like you're gonna take the money without talking to anybody. I mean, that's
Right.
not what the purpose of this policy is.
I can't remember, are we suggesting that the capital planning committee or someone have just a yearly check-in or a?
Well, I think, yes, I mean, I think to me, it's built in place, because it is a
You
conversation.
know, what's the status of, yeah, even by
Yeah.
email.
Which I have done. Hey, what's the status of this?
Exactly. I have done it. I mean,
But if we could also have it in a more, in a very clear, you will get
Right.
quarterly,
yeah.
we need quarterly updates or
Right.
6-month updates.
Yeah.
Because that way it stays top of mind as opposed to being.
So I don't know if this is the official process or not, but in my opinion, I say we officially take a vote on this capital planning policy. I'll let Linda know, and then maybe we get Linda to send around a copy, provide.
Put it on the selectmen's
Yeah,
agenda. They
put
have-
it on the selectmen's agenda, give it to Dawn, just let everyone know where
Capital
we,
planning
and-
reports to the Board of Selectmen or capital planning committee? What?
I guess so.
I think everybody does,
Yeah.
ultimately.
Yeah.
This is the selectmen's budget anyway, so whatever we do with this
Okay.
or
We're just
anything
doing
at the
advanced
table
Making
is
recommendations,
make
that's all.
recommendations.
We're just doing
for the
advanced
selectmen.
recon.
I was just trying to figure out how capital planning fits into that and to what degree.
Yeah, we'll make sure they get a copy too, but I think is.
I don't think they'd have a problem with it.
Yeah. So, so to that point, based upon the policy that we have discussed, we've shared with everyone, I'll entertain a motion to approve the capital planning policy as discussed.
So moved.
Capital planning policy proposal? Does
Sure.
somebody have to okay it?
So
Yeah, that probably has, the selectmen
Yeah,
probably have to.
so it's a proposal.
Yeah, we can't.
All right,
We're just
so
voting that we like
Connie
it.
and Joe, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, so, yeah, we'll get that to Dawn and the selectmen, and they can do their own with it. All right, so from here, I think this is, I thought we could spend a little bit of time talking about revenue. And again, I'm not specifically sure how we proceed with this, other than, we spend so much time focused on the cost side of the house. I think it's within this committee's purview. We should also take a look and think about some ideas around revenue. Nanachka has been a big, driving force on reminding me to be looking at this, and she has some ideas. I know that she's been in communication with Brian, and I think collectively we it's worth talking about. And I don't know if we'll solve everything this evening, but if you want to take over, Brian, or Nanachka, however you guys want to. I know you've spent more time together than really I have on this subject matter.
Well, I was just going to start with a thought that occurred to me over the past couple of days, which was that maybe one of the next steps is looping in the Economic Development Committee if we're talking about the meals tax specifically.
That's a good idea.
Because
I think they're in tomorrow night.
They are.
Yeah.
So
When did that go last to town meeting? Because that came up as a warrant article.
I don't ever
few
remember.
years
I don't think
ago.
no, I don't think it ever came.
I don't remember a meals tax.
Well, I don't,
but I don't-
I remember because I was personal, well,
Yeah, you were personally attacked.
well, with the winery and all, Jay's. and
Well, I mean, you are gonna get
remember.
pushback for sure,
I
but
thought it came
I
up.
think we also have to be cognizant of, we need revenue. I
We
mean,
need revenue, but there
It's
aren't
a
that many.
no-brainer.
Oh, I agree, but
There
I
are
just can't remember
And
when it was voted on.
Well,
Once it-
And
No.
the other due diligence is if
So-
people are worried about it, look at all the towns around us that
Yeah,
already have done
everybody
it,
else
so
does
we're
it.
not gonna be an outlier.
No, and
But
they
I
were
don't drive
paying
Jay's
a
out of
variable tax.
And you can
So
always
we are
say,
rational.
this is like the fallback. It's like, would you not go to a restaurant because they had a meals tax? Do you even know any, like, when you
We
go
don't
to a
even
restaurant,
know
I don't
that
even
we're
pay
being-
attention
The
that there's a
1%
meals
or
tax.
whatever.
And I
it
would
is.
never not go to a restaurant because they had a meals tax.
No, you wouldn't. do that, but do we want to tax ourselves? If you have a town like
Yeah.
Marlboro or
But
something,
if you go to
where
get a
outsiders
pizza
are
in
coming
Hudson,
in,
you're paying it.
you
You go
say-
to a
Right.
pizza,
Exactly. So you pay
Chinese
an extra
food in
buck.
Maynard, you're paying it.
it's a little different
Right.
But
equation
he's-
than taxing ourselves.
Right.
And if you have a wedding over at the winery or something and you're paying, I don't know, 5 to 10 grand or something, and I don't know how much of that is food, you know, it's
But I would
You see what you're
go
talking
back
about,
and
the
argue
continent.
that
I mean,
any
they're
other
not gonna go
vendor
there.
Intercontinental would be
in a
the
town
only
that's
one
already
house.
assessed this,
What
Right.
you're thinking.
it's already built in.
Would they not go to the winery because they demand?
How many,
No.
how
With
many
these-
towns around here don't do it? Towns that have restaurants.
So,
Well, I think what Ted's saying is that we're already paying taxes in town, and then most of the people that go to the restaurants that we have in our town are people from our town.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's true.
So
I don't think that's
just,
true.
that's
getting.
what Ted is saying,
It's
and
hiding
so.
the tax, it's just
It's just-
Exactly,
Yeah.
we have to
We
raise
have
more
to
money.
raise more
And if
money.
you raise $60,000, that's one of our salaries in town hall.
Right.
I mean, these are not
And also,
chump change, you
so
know?
Brian brings up a good point. We loop in EDC. They very well may know, yes, you know what? We have this number of restaurants, and oh, by the way, we've already asked them that. And we know that this restaurant, 70% of their money comes in the door from, townspeople. X% comes in.
Well, they're all gonna be against
And
it.
one of the
Right,
things
okay.
just to remember,
We've
and
done this, and I've gotta go check, we have done this a few years back.
so the website allows you to project what your take would be, and one thing I noticed is that we actually, they give it to you over the course of 12 months, and the fall months were actually our biggest
Well, that makes
money
sense.
makers, which to me suggests that actually it is a fair number of out-of-towners who are coming into Bolton.
Well, look at all the
Well,
leaf
you know,
peepers.
oh,
I mean, that's-
my,
Yeah.
my friends and relatives from the Boston area always say,
Yeah.
oh, Bolton, oh,
Oh, you
yes,
showed in
we
the
know."
show, but there's very few people from Bolton there. I mean,
Right.
they're all out of towners,
Intercontinental.
you know? And it's like,
So you know what? Also, the spreadsheet that we all have from our packet this evening, turn to page 2 is the revenue page. It's the very first item on the front page, right?
Yeah.
Total granted, we haven't fully finished this, hence the reason why, but, so total revenue is 24,182,000, right? Turn to page 2, and, we're looking at that. As we go down there, you guys tell me where we're gonna find some revenue.
well, I would also say, it's like, bring it to town meeting. If it gets defeated, it gets defeated. But I feel like at least we're showing the town, we're trying to,
I think that's
And
a
I think we
mitigate
can
your
also
taxes.
get some data from other towns, the percentage that is
Right.
they figure is local versus.
No, exactly, and Nanoshka and I have spoken about this one component. This is something, right, to me, it is not just advisory, it's not just the town accountant, it is looping in the EDC. It's having a discussion with the selectmen, right, it's the treasurer, so that there's a collective, one, analysis, two, if an article does move, I agree, it goes before the town, up or down, whatever. But at the same time, an article that is sponsored by the town accountants,
Oh, I agree.
the town treasurer,
Yeah.
the selectmen, the advisory board, the EDC. I
And
mean,
you could also, it's very easy to show, here's what a meal for 4 would be with the current meal tax, and this is the
Now,
increase.
how much is it? What
it's
is,
like 0.75 is the
It's
minimum.
more
Right.
principle.
yeah, less than
It's just the
1%.
principle.
but you've got to pay.
Is-
Principal,
do
you
the
have to
cherry-
pay
Do the
taxes.
cherry sheets show that
People think
return
about
of
the
that
property
money?
tax.
You can find those online.
Yeah.
You can find it for any town.
Yeah, well, so take the rooms tax, the rooms occupancy tax, for instance. We don't do
We don't
a
have-
thing for it, and it comes in every quarter, it just dumps into our account, and it's like, boom, there you go. I
So
mean,
that's
how
on
much?
the cherry sheet?
So, yeah, it's so.
Okay, well then
Do
the
we
DOR
have,
says
are there any hotels, motels?
it. International.
International.
Oh, international, that's right.
There are a couple bed and breakfasts.
Right, that's right. Okay, so
So it's a
No
state
more
tax that comes to the
Airbnbs.
local municipality, right?
I'm sorry?
That gets levied regardless. right?
Right.
So that's not on the cherry sheet, that's something, that's,
So
those
it's
are
a
not.
state tax, it's a state tax, but it goes to the
Me.
local.
The oracle of knowledge, okay.
So I can get you the same thing, the room occupancy revenue.
But I mean, you know, one of the, on page 2, one of the areas, state revenue, chapter 70, unrestricted general government aid, veterans benefits, vets, blind, surviving spouses.
Right, yeah, so
State
those are
owned-
the cherry sheet items.
Yeah, the bottom line is, you know,
We don't get a ton of state aid.
but at the same time, it's not like we have the ability to impact that.
What are you
No.
reading from, Brent?
What's that?
The new spreadsheet on the second page.
The budget.
The budget.
The budget.
Page 2 of that thing that was passed out
Which is
today.
passed out.
So
I wanna say it's like, maybe the room occupancy is like $12,000, I don't know.
My point is, we have one page of revenue, and even within this, there's a whole mess of revenue items that we don't have the ability to say, hey, let's,
Yeah, we have very little
we
say
want
in
more
any
chapter
revenue.
70 money.
Right.
It's not gonna happen,
Well, I mean,
right?
and at some point,
So
we
the question is
authorize the
what-
room tax.
Yeah.
And people still stay at these places.
Yeah,
right?
sure,
I mean,
of
what's the
course.
difference?
But no, let me ask you, so as we move down to local receipts, local, that implies Bolton, we have the ability
Yes,
to
those
impact.
are our,
So we can, and, you know, the motor vehicle, I mean,
you
we
have no
make,
idea.
we
Just-
make an assumption. But at the same,
Exactly.
it's not as if we also can change the rate.
Right.
That's at the state, right?
Same,
So,
we really can't change a lot of these things. We could raise like fees, you know, permitting fees and things like that, but
yeah.
other than that,
It
we
gets to
really
Ted's
don't
point.
have a lot
Do
of.
we want to put additional taxes on town? Like, to me, that is a direct tax on townspeople, right? Because the only one who's gonna be charged fees or something like that, that's definitely gonna be highly town person oriented. A meals tax, even if you take all the restaurants, even if we don't ever get one shred of data, we know there's gonna be the best percentage of out-of-towners tied with a restaurant as opposed to increasing licensing and permits.
Well, you know for a
right?
fact, you're gonna make more than you're making right
Right.
now. I mean, even it's like you made $1,000, it's still, I mean, it's like, I don't think we should be turning away any money. I think it's crazy.
No,
I mean, all of our taxes are outrageous.
that's where my point was, we don't have a lot of room to
Right.
look.
That's about the only option we have, is a,
I mean, I think when Don
And
said
then
he's
this
gonna
source of
look at
revenue,
the
that's
cell,
That's it. Yeah, we
not the
need
cell, the solar, like, I think that's an interesting revenue, but it's not a quick fix. You know,
Yeah.
that's something, but I think that's important to look at, that's a good revenue source.
And the idea of
What else?
when do we pull the trigger and sell the cell tower, right? Because that is a diminishing, right? So do we just say, we're gonna ride this thing down to the ground? Or do we, you know, call the moment?
Right, the income's
Yeah.
nice. So I think, you know, he's gotta get numbers of what you sell it for to run those numbers, you know, run
That's
that
right.
analysis. But I think for right now, what we could do for FY19, the meals tax is the only thing I can think of that's immediate. That's something that could affect next year's budget.
Is there a state database or something that's a list of towns that have already used it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brad or Brian. Yes.
Yeah, I think you shared that with us last week, didn't you, or over the course of this past
Well,
week?
yeah, there's a link which you can kind of.
Is that the local
Yeah.
services?
So this is some of the
Oh,
some of the ones near us that have and haven't done
I
it.
mean, some I was surprised that don't, but some do.
That's right.
And some, I mean, they're charging 2%, we're only charging 2.75.
Room.
I'd say, you know, start small, start at the minimum
Businesses,
percentage.
restaurant owners coming in and demanding why we should have to. But the reason I was like, there's no area for tax rate. And they get away with less taxes from that anyway. So that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And their beef was, this is years ago, it was, it hit me. It was brought up, I don't know if it was ever on the warrant, but it was discussed at a selectmen's meeting.
But they, I mean, yeah, I don't think it ever made it to
I
town.
remember it being
And
discussed.
I think so too.
I do remember, you know, some of the town owners of restaurants coming in and asking for it not to happen. But I also remember one of the reasons why I think we were pushing it was because they don't have a variable tax rate. They pay a flat tax rate and they get a break because they pay a flat tax rate.
Right.
So
I say get them on the warrant, let the town
it's not
decide.
gonna keep people from going to the restaurant.
And I think if you laid out the data, I mean, I think, I would be surprised, I don't think there's any bigger town. I mean, Hudson has it, Marlboro has it, any place you go where you find a bunch of restaurants has it.
We didn't go.
I don't exactly have a buck.
I know, it was around the show, but now it's on your right.
Do that or.
I don't know what other kind of
I was trying to be subtle.
bring into town. I don't know what other kind of businesses would come to town, you know, where else we could book.
Yeah.
No.
I think our revenue discussion should also include how do we increase the tax base in the non-residential categories? And, you know,
Like
which.
more commercial business?
Maybe which standing committee or department or person in the town already has it under in part of their mission or should have it.
Yeah.
I think economic development
I feel
Planning board will
Yeah,
say
yeah.
NEC.
I think they're trying, but
If your
This is not a town.
annual objective was to increase the
Businesses don't wanna
tax
come
base
here.
by
People
X
pass
every
through
year.
here.
and then
Yeah.
also mentioned the traffic on 117
Yeah,
is a
people
barrier
live here. I mean,
to
it's not,
working here.
it's not gonna be,
It's
it's never
not.
gonna be a center for
I agree.
low, you know,
I
some
agree.
miracle business is going to generate tax revenue without degrading our,
Our town's built as such that it's,
I think we need to take a proactive
well, we do, and that's what the
And-
EDC is supposed to do.
and
Yeah,
come
they-
up with options.
There's no doubt.
Not we advisory,
No, I
but
mean-
we,
The town.
some of the.
I feel as though, I mean, I've had some conversations with Eric Nyland. I think the EDC, because he's on that, I think the planning board, they are looking
They're
at
actively
that.
trying
And,
to-
you know, I mean, I think, you know, Dawn, when talking about legal this evening, referenced marijuana. I mean, they are, the
that's the next
planning-
big tax.
The planning
Yeah.
board sent out, I mean, they put out a survey, so they're looking. But again, I think it comes back to what this town, to Joe's point, what this town has always faced. There's been a lot of attempts to bring forth more commercial. The town shows up and says, no.
I say farm the pot or rent a farm community. Tax
So
it.
yeah,
I would agree with you. There's some buildings that could be used.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
see anything wrong with it.
yeah, so.
Other towns are gonna make a lot of
And
money
it-
off of this.
Yeah, and it just goes back to the conversation that we started this entire year with, which is what Brian mentioned, was making sure that we are assisting, because we have the advantage of seeing all these groups, making sure that we are assisting to make connections and making sure that there is collaboration among.
I think that's very helpful. I've noticed that this budget season, just I think them talking to you in advance has helped.
Yeah.
You know, when they've come in.
Yeah,
Already
I-
had an
Yeah, well, we
understanding.
understand, I mean, we saw the budget, and then once we talked with them, we understood it a lot better.
Right.
Yeah, it's just making sure that there's conversations going on among these interconnected boards, or assisting them to make the connection that you guys should be talking to one another.
Right, you guys are doing similar things.
right.
Work
Yeah.
together. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, tomorrow night, we've got planning board, we have EDC,
EDC and we have capital.
falls in right with this conversation, we will continue the conversation on that. Human Services, Council on Aging.
Proposal for the meals tax. EDC comes up with, oh, that's a great idea.
So, if no other, any other questions, comments?
No, I think this is good.
If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All
Do we
those
have
in,
to do meeting minutes?
We don't have any.
Oh,
all those in
That's on the
favor,
agenda.
that's all right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Have a good night.
Oh.
Thank you.